Saving the lives of those two people.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you won't be getting your run tonight. How are you feeling? Still staying strong?
I think so. You know, it's a matter of, you know, will the lower half. Hey, Mike, will the lower half cooperate with the upper half? Because the heart and head are there. The knees and hips are the other story.
Sure.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
That discussion the other day about Grand Avenue, like the 15 or 30 year lease, they want to put that sound down there.
I went and grabbed the lease that the Lyle District did. Very good lease. A lot of the same things that we would typically have in a lease and the things that we discussed in terms of protections.
Yeah.
Exit clauses, and out clauses, and what if clauses.
Right.
All in there. It needs a couple little
Okay.
TLCs, but you were spot on as to what we would need to have.
Okay, good.
And
How are you?
offer something substantially similar, and they put it. So that was
What's a good answer?
I was just going to follow up with you. I saw your email.
Right.
I spoke with Stan this afternoon.
Okay.
And he asked if we could delay the meeting until early May when he's back in town.
Well, that's fine.
That's what I said. There's no hurry on this. We don't have any pressure. You know, we can get the project started while we iron this out.
Wait, can you get the project started? No, we still have to find it. You mean just do the 76 more meetings? I think.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
75-25 tonight. Yeah. And that way we can get the gears in motion. But as far as the financing goes, we can iron that out.
But what? Go ahead.
So I was going to send.
How are you?
Good.
How are you?
I was going to talk with other board members and send me an email with proposed dates in May.
These people here for noise.
I believe
Well,
so,
there's
but
probably
that's a
the
question
one,
for Matt and Jeff.
noise, then
I believe so.
The recognition.
the recognition
Their
event,
administrator,
and there may be some
that
people for
authorizes the
the,
project
for my motion.
has approved it.
Yeah. She's a former, I missed it, but she's a former,
Right,
Trustee.
it's different because this is right.
that's why we have these groups that discern. There's always a value of public comment, but
Yeah.
we're the ones with the responsibility.
I have to get better at looking at that. Sorry.
The green light is on.
Yes, it's a very just. Oh, this should be a good meeting.
Yeah.
Well attended.
You think?
Don't you think?
A lot of merit badges in the audience, right?
A lot
A
of
lot of merit badges in the audience.
I've got about 45 minutes on my issue.
Good.
Yeah, okay.
Can you make it longer?
I got a PowerPoint and everything.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sure it's a noise issue.
Sheila probably can't find a place to park.
Yeah. I was pretty far.
I thought this was. Oh, no, it's not till March she's gone. That's right. I was thinking this was one of the ones she was going to be out of town for.
I don't think so.
No, it's March. Yeah.
But you're right, I thought someone was gonna be
Yeah, I
absent.
thought Sheila,
Yeah, okay.
Brian said Sheila was.
All right,
That's
okay.
right. Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Anybody want water? Barry?
Oh, yeah, let me, I can get that.
It's all right. I've
Ingrid's
got it.
one.
Mike?
Is Sheila's gonna be here?
No, I don't think she is.
Okay, it's not too
Mike,
bad.
water?
Oh,
A little bit, sure.
All right.
yes, it is.
Heidi, water?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Okay. Can I hand that to you? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, so as far as the closed session goes, then should I just ask for a motion at the end? Because it's not on this agenda.
We'll just ask for a
Special
motion.
I have
Probably,
to do,
yeah.
or just ask for a motion to recess for closed
Recess
session for
close
the purpose.
of discussing, and then
Fall asleep on the floor.
the three exceptions are right on there.
You got to connect with Thailand.
She's got it.
So is it easiest if I read this and then somebody just says so moved?
But we're also going to be talking, oh yeah, no, yeah, just say, I'm asking for a closed session, and somebody make a motion to recess for the purposes stated under 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And then somebody will pick up on it and make a motion.
Thank you. This is that quiet few minutes.
Just a little longer.
Yeah. Maybe it's the more people you have, the longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Trust me. You know how they behave in 85. So. I said your ratio. What did you hear?
This motion.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need, after this, I don't need to say anything about it in the closed session. We just do
Or
it.
just do that at the end. Or you can just mention that you're going to be asked.
That was the last time. Last time, yeah. She's out of here.
Need to though.
I think the movie van was coming this week or something like
Florida.
that. Yep.
Just done.
That plane that crashed in the house in Florida today was right where we were last week in Winter Haven.
I didn't hear about. I heard about the one that went from Miami to Houston.
No, this one went right into a house.
Still gonna meet
It
for
was
1
a
and 2
small
though?
engine plane. Nobody in the family was hurt. Pilot was killed. Co-pilot was a Navy SEAL. He
So
survived.
you don't want to just
And people on the
mention
ground road.
Yeah.
it in closed session?
No, it was out. It looked like it was a home. Winter Haven, yeah. My son was out in the airport, the Nigerian guys.
Oh, seriously?
Held them for police until they were able to.
The atomic clock at the back of the room.
That's the sidekicks.
They kept them.
Yeah.
And they rolled over pretty quickly.
Tweedledee,
I think the
Tweedledum.
real hero there was their lawyer.
Probably said, yeah, get in front of this.
He said, yeah, they were nice guys.
Your son, is he ICE or
Okay, all set, Dan?
CBP.
That's what it was, okay. So I can drop
Thank
his
you.
name in.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this February regular meeting of your Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes and especially to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk Haskey, thank you for filling in tonight. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Allen.
Here.
Trustee Hansen is absent. Trustee Rudolph.
Here.
Trustee Sifferman.
Here.
Trustee Timick.
Here.
Trustee Tyrrell.
Here.
And President Gallagher.
Here. Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item. We are honored to have two of our state senators here today. We have newly elected Susie Glowiak, also a resident of Western Springs. We welcome her back to our boardroom, and ours, Senator John Curran, here in order to recognize a resident for his heroic acts recently that saved the lives of two young women. So please come.
So this is the great fun part of our job. John and I are here to commend you for, I'll read it for you. It says here, the Illinois Senate of the 101st General Assembly of the State of Illinois acknowledges Jeff Pohl in recognition of his life-saving actions to keep two high school girls from walking in front of a metro train, and commends him for his incredible bravery and selfless determination to help someone in need, which makes him an outstanding role model for all the citizens of the state of Illinois. And this is offered by Senators John Curran and Susie Glowiak. And we do really appreciate and commend you for stepping up and doing that. I can't imagine how frightened those girls were, and how I'm sure it was just an act that you did out of bravery to help them to not step in front of it.
I was very frightened myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Much appreciated. I know the entire community here really embraces your role and your courage and just that split-second reaction. So the least we can do that to honor you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pohl, on behalf of the board, thank you. We'd like to join with our senators in thanking you and commending you for your acts. Your quick thinking and your quick action certainly saved those lives. So thank you so much. Thank you. Also this evening, we have the tollway here to present on the noise wall. Rocco, if you'd like to. Thank you.
Good evening. Over there.
Sure.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here again. I always do appreciate, I have to say this, I do appreciate the collaboration that we've had and the continued dialogue that we have with your community, your leadership, all of you, and the input that we're getting. It's nice that we do have the open dialogue as we continue to advance some of our plans for our Interstate 294 project. Let me make sure that you understand what we're here talking about. And it's still in the planning and design process, so there's still opportunity for feedback, and it's always a good opportunity to share information because it's nice to let you know what we know when we know it. And again, and getting that continued feedback and dialogue to allow us to modify our plans and really make sure they reflect our discussions. I presented in the past. I could go into a lot of detail if you like. I thought tonight I want to again keep it high level and focus on the noise, unless you would want me to go into a little bit more about the project.
No, I believe at this point in time everybody is pretty familiar with the scope of the project, and this meeting is specifically to address citizen concerns about the noise wall.
Okay. Well, that saves us pretty much the first slide. So we really want to focus tonight. We've got our whole team here. Well, not our whole team because it's a big team, but we have several people here from the tollway representatives. But tonight we do want to focus on noise, and with us tonight is Brian Wagner. He is our noise expert at the tollway, and that's exactly what he's going to walk you through. Our noise study, our results, where we are, and I think hopefully address your questions, issues, and things.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank
Thanks, Rocco. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it. As Rocco noted, I don't know that I'm an expert, and he knows that best, but
I'm sorry, you need to have the microphone. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. So I'm the Tolley's Environmental Policy and Program Manager. I oversee all aspects of environmental aspects for the Tolley, and one of those being our traffic noise study and abatement policy. So getting into the Central Tri-State and our traffic noise, and probably what you're most interested in is how do noise walls work, where do they go, why do we put them there, when do we put them there. So the intent of a noise wall is fairly obvious, and it's to reduce traffic noise. That's a really high-level general statement, but so traffic noise walls are put in place where we have defined traffic noise impacts. The Federal Highway Administration, along with the Tolley's noise policy, defines a traffic noise impact as 67 decibels. So anytime we enter into a study of a project area where there's noise levels that meet or exceed that 67 decibel number, we get into a formal traffic noise abatement analysis. I apologize. The Tolley's goal for our traffic noise abatement is to reduce traffic noise by a minimum of 8 decibels, and our maximum, we have a goal of reducing traffic noise by 8 decibels, I apologize, and a minimum of 5 decibels. So how do noise walls work? Noise walls work best by blocking the line of sight from traffic. So when you're standing in your backyard, so you don't see that traffic, that is our goal. Noise walls are intended for first floor residents. It gets extremely difficult to provide noise abatement for multi-level homes. So once we're talking about second, third story, we're starting to get into condominiums and things like that, at third or fourth story places, noise abatement it's very difficult to provide noise abatement for those units. So determining how and where noise walls go. The first step is we develop the federal.
Should we be turning toward the screen then?
It's up to you. I'm not necessarily reading everything verbatim. Just highlighting things or going through, providing more detail in things that are there.
Excuse me, I should say there will be an opportunity for questions after the presentation. We thought it made sense to have the presentation first so that you can formulate your questions after.
Thank you. So, how are noise walls determined to be needed and where do they go? The Federal Highway Administration has developed something called the traffic noise model. This model is an intensive model that had a lot of research and development put into it, and it effectively determines current noise levels and future noise levels. There's been a world of testing that's gone into it to validate this model, and so that is what the Federal Highway Administration recommends for use or requires for use on roadway projects. So that model is built out, and what is building out the model consist of? We go and we put in what the pardon me, roadway looks like today, what the traffic types are that are on the road. So what are the traffic counts and the traffic types that are on that road today? Who's using it? What's that road look like? Is it 3, 5, 4 lanes? What are the traffic counts of cars versus trucks? What kind of trucks? Are they semis? And then what's the local topography? So what's the elevation of the road? What's the elevation of the areas adjacent to the road? All those things get put into the model, and then the model is run, and it gives you a current condition. After that, the model is filled out to determine what the future project will look like. So if we're adding a lane, we'll put one more lane into that model with proposed elevations of that roadway and future traffic counts as well. Not only just traffic counts, but projections as far as how many trucks, how many cars, those types of things will be there. The model is run again, and it gives us a future prediction. Once we have a current and future noise levels, we go out and we do monitoring. So we'll go and set up a stand, and we'll monitor what the noise levels are for a period of time throughout the project area. So there's several monitoring locations that occur throughout the Central Tri-State project area. And the modeling is solely intended to validate the model. So when we're going out, we want to make sure that the outputs of the model are in line with what the actual conditions are in the field at any given point in time. I say any given point in time, what the outputs of the model are, they're accurate with what the current conditions are. From there, if it is found that there's a traffic noise impact, so getting back to that 67 decibel number, if there's an impact, then we get into determining the feasibility and reasonability side of noise abatement. So the first off is feasibility. Is it feasible to construct noise abatement in this project area? And that is, can we effectively reduce traffic noise by 8 decibels with a minimum of 5 decibels? If yes, then it goes into the reasonable side. The reasonable side is a cost analysis to see, is it cost effective for the tollway to provide noise abatement? The tollway has a range of costs that are allowed for noise abatement ranging, so it ranges from $30,000 to $45,000 per benefited receptor. So if you're an impacted home or a resident or a receptor, you're assigned a value of somewhere between $30,000 to $45,000 per receptor. So can we effectively build noise abatement within that range for that home or that impacted receptor? Give you an example of that. There's a home, hypothetical, there's a home on a 3-acre lot sitting out there in the middle of nowhere on 3 acres adjacent to the roadway. It's found to be impacted by traffic noise, but in order to build a wall, it's going to cost $500,000. Hypothetical numbers. It's going to cost $500,000 for that one home to provide effective noise abatement, to reduce traffic noise by 8 decibels. That does not meet that $30,000 to $45,000 threshold for us to consider it to be warranted. So density in homes is key in finding them warranted or meeting the reasonable side of our policy. So that's an overview of the tollway's policy, or how we determine where noise abatement is determined to be warranted. Now, getting specifically to your area here in Western Springs, good news is all walls were found to be warranted, and we are going to be replacing all of the walls that are out there. So we're going to have a couple new walls, and then all of the existing walls will be replaced, and they'll be precast concrete walls. There will be some gaps. You will see some gaps in the walls from time to time. And those gaps are for a number of different reasons. Mainly they're for, one, drainage. So if we have a ditch that needs outlet to a stream or a creek or something along those lines, we'll have a gap there. Or if there's a frontage road, we'll also have a gap there. But anytime there's a gap, it's key to know that there should be enough overlap so that wall will be longer on both sides of that gap to abate any gap that exists there. So that gap won't affect the wall's ability to provide noise abatement because it'll be longer on both sides of the gap to nullify that break. So getting a little bit into the details on the noise walls. Starting from Plainfield Road running north to 55th Street. The pink areas there are new wall, and the, I'm going to call it blue, are walls, existing walls that will be replaced. So closest to Plainfield Road up to the Oasis, that's going to be a new wall that will be an average height of about 16 feet. The wall around the Oasis will be a 12-foot high wall, and then the wall from that blue portion of the wall will be an 18-foot high wall.
And how is that determined, the heights?
The heights are determined, it's all about trying to get the noise reduction. So we're trying to meet that goal of that 8 decibel reduction in noise. So that's what we're trying to do there. So the walls are designed to try and maximize the reduction while remaining cost effective for tollway's policy.
Thank you.
Could you back up a slide?
Yes, sir.
Is east to the top?
Oh, I'm sorry. So 55th Street, I don't know, does this have a pointer?
Yes.
Here we go. We got a pointer over here, sir. Or, 55th.
Oh, okay.
Plainfield. Or no, I'm sorry, no.
No,
That's 55th and Plainfield.
No. Yeah, it's looking west. Top is west. Yeah, top is
Yes,
west.
it's on the
I
bottom.
think of it as south and north, so south to north.
Yeah.
Yes. Western
So where it
Springs
says
is the
Hinsdale
bottom
Oasis,
half.
that's Hinsdale. Where it's below the toll road, that's Western Springs.
Correct. So this is trails, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you tell between the existing and new?
With respect to
Which bridge?
the existing is this pink or purple.
And what height is that?
Or no, I'm sorry. The new is the pink or purple, and the existing is the blue. So the new wall will be 16 feet in this area. Average height is 16 feet, and then 12 feet around the oasis, and then we've got 18 feet here. Again,
18 feet from the ground or from the grade level of the tollway?
it'll be from the ground to the top of the wall. So the key is not necessarily the height of the wall, but the reduction that it provides in noise. So, you know, throughout the tollway system, we definitely have places where a wall that is, say, 10 feet high provides more abatement than an 18-foot high wall because of a number of scenarios that play into it. So what's the elevation of the roadway compared to the elevation of the adjacent homes? What's the distance? The closer the homes are, so as we move, apologies, as we move up to this next slide here, through the Commonwealth area, the homes are a little bit closer to the roadway, so there's a more reduction that's achieved for those first row homes because they're closer. That abatement is closer to them, so if I step back here, that sound shadow is greater for the homes closer to the roadway than it is for those that are further away. So the wall through the Commonwealth area, it's going to be approximately 18 feet, average height of 18 feet. And right here we have final design to be determined. This wall will be extended for, the tollway was made aware, thank you, of commitment to extend the wall to 47th Street in the past. I believe that was back in the mid-90s that we made that commitment. And we're going to do our best to honor it and get that wall as close to 47th Street as possible. So the final location of, will it be 10 feet, 50 feet off of that? Not sure. We have to take some utilities into account because any of those crossroad bridges, there's utilities that will run along them, but it will extend much further to the north than it currently does.
Is this your neighborhood?
Yep. Over there.
And then as we go a little bit further north here, in the last section, so just north of the Public Works building, we've got a 20-foot wall that we put in place. And then there's an existing berm there that is highly effective because it's a 20-foot berm that exists, and that berm will remain as part of our work. And then north of that, we've got a 20 to 14 to 16-foot wall. So in this section here, it'll start off probably 20, matching that berm, taper down 14, and then 16 over here. And again, everything is site-specific. There's no, please understand that we have a policy, the tollway has a traffic noise study and abatement policy that we adhere to strictly to make sure that we address noise uniformly throughout our system. So regardless of what portion of the system you're on, what side of the road you're on, I want to make sure that we're addressing noise uniformly throughout, and that one side or one section isn't getting treated any differently than the other. My goal is to make sure that every wall that goes out there provides the most reduction that it can And that goal is an 8 decibel reduction, a minimum of 5. And from there, that's the end of my summary on our noise. I'm welcome to any questions now, or if you would like to wait for later.
Yes, I thought first we would have questions from the board, and then we'll open it up to the public. If we could go one at a time. Trustee Rudolph, I saw your hand up. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, can you go back one slide then? So to the left edge there, the gap by the blue, looks like Spring Rock Park?
Down here? This is the maintenance yard here.
Oh, okay. So I guess I can't see, so just on the other side.
Would be Spring Rock.
Spring Rock right here?
Yeah.
Right. So there's nothing there, correct?
Correct.
So
we're working with the village on addressing aesthetic and visual concerns through there, but noise abatement was not found to be warranted at that location.
And is that because of the definition of receptor and that the homes aren't close enough because of the park and the intervening?
It actually wasn't necessarily the homes. There are receptors. There were identified receptors within the park. It was just, and I've got the noise analysis, and we could look through that if you'd like.
Okay.
It's a bit of detail for this forum
Sure.
here. But there were receptors that were identified within the park.
Okay.
It was just, it wasn't found to be warranted because it didn't meet the feasibility and reasonability side of our policy.
Okay.
I guess I'll step back a little bit, kind of to that noise shadow slide. And that noise abatement is really only effective for the first 500 feet within the roadway. Once you get outside of that, it's very difficult to provide noise abatement. That shadow, it's just, you have to build walls incredibly tall to even try and provide coverage on that shadow. So anything outside of, oh, I'm sorry, sir. Anything outside of here, outside of that 500 feet, really, it's just not effective. And also, noise is an energy, and that energy dissipates with time and distance. And also, it lessens with interaction with different surfaces. So the ground and the grass and things like that will lessen the energy, and also the distance that noise has to travel. It's not as intense as when it's not as intense as you get further away from the source. So not to say that you can't hear it, and I guess one of the things I should have said, the purpose of noise walls, it's to abate traffic noise impacts only. It's not to lessen noise levels for areas that aren't impacted.
Okay. I'd be curious to see the greater detail of that area.
Okay.
I live by there, and I live across from the park, and it seems to amplify rather than deaden the sound. And of course, it's worse in the winter when the trees aren't leafed out. So it's pretty noticeable.
May I ask a question?
One moment, please. The board will ask questions
This may
first.
help everyone's definition though here. Can you tell us that if the tollway is going to increase from 8 lanes to 12?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the increased noise level will be?
Could you repeat his question? He wants to know what the increased noise level will be as part of the overall effort. So we're increasing from 8 to 12 lanes. What will the increased noise levels be? I don't have, I can't recite those numbers offhand, but I can tell you, so with respect to traffic noise or noise in general, the human ear is able to perceive a 3 decibel change in noise levels. There will not be, I don't believe there will be a 3 decibel change in noise levels throughout this section of our project area or any section throughout the entire corridor. I'll have to look into that, but there should not be a perceptible difference in noise levels.
Thank you.
I have,
Oh, Bill, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the timing of this part of the project? Installation of the new walls, the demolition of the other walls, in relation to the project? Is this going to be the last thing that happens in this project, or will it be done first so that it will abate some of the noise in the construction project?
Really good question, and I'm going to turn to some of the team here. but I can tell you this. One thing is that we have to be careful in constructing noise walls in advance of our work, because then that further boxes us into a confined work environment. So the last thing that we want to do to our contractors is have them install a noise wall and then the next construction season turn around and hit it or have to remove it for some reason or another. John will be able to give a little bit better overview of the sequencing through here, as he's more familiar with that.
Right. So first thing we want to tell you is that the planning. I'm sorry, John Nelson. I'm with Hanson Professional Services. I'm a consultant for the tollway, and I'm the design section engineer for this section of the tollway. So first of all, the sequencing hasn't been finalized, but what appears to be the preferred sequencing would be that the construction on the Western Springs side would be in the first construction season, would be early. If that is the case, then the noise wall would be back, a new noise wall would be in place very likely at the end of the first construction season before we move on across the road to the rest of it. So we're looking at a construction on the main line of somewhere between 2 and 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. And this, as it looks now, would be done, most or all of Western Springs would be done in that first construction season.
Thank you.
John, I had a couple of questions. First, will there be a substantial period of time will there be no wall? And secondly, is the wall itself, that's already existing, especially north of 47th or whatever, will that wall be moving westward or will it be staying in the same spot?
Right. Well, to answer your first question, what was your first question?
First question, sorry. My first question is there going to be a substantial period of time where there will be no wall standing? And how are these walls built?
Right.
Are they just flopped up or are they?
Yeah, unfortunately, Brian mentioned a little bit before, sometimes we're able to build a wall in advance before we take the old one down. In the vast majority, I think 100% in Western Springs, we can't find an opportunity to do that because of the amount of work that needs to be done underground, in the retaining walls, and the work associated with the main line. So what we would expect is the old wall would be down about a construction season. So it'd have to come down fairly early in a first construction season, and then it would be probably back in place towards the end of the construction season.
What would that be? 6 months, 9 months?
6 months is probably a reasonable time frame. It might be just a little bit longer than that. A typical construction season would be March to Thanksgiving-ish.
What kind of segments are we talking about for the, let's say for the village, from Plainfield all the way down to the Cloverleaf Oasis at Ogden? Would the whole thing be down, or even if all of that wall be down for that 6 months? Or are you going to segment it?
At some point during that first construction season, I would expect that it'll all be down. As they button up, as the contractor buttons up, we'll put in the specifications to get the wall up as quickly as we can to minimize disruption.
My second question is the wall that's existing now, is that going to be moving, or will the new wall that you build, will that stay in the same place?
Yeah, for it will be moving at this point because of the amount of stuff we have to build in that area. It's probably going to move a little closer to the existing tollway center line, and by, I don't know, probably less than 10 feet in most cases.
But can you put that in perspective, west or east?
It would be, the wall would actually be moving a little bit west from where it is today.
Toward the tollway.
Towards the tollway.
Away from our homes.
A little bit, yes.
Thank you.
I just had one question back to the noise level. When the calculation was done in terms of the noise levels post-expansion, was that based on an expectation that volume of traffic would increase, or is it a proximity to the homes when it's expanded closer, or both? So do you see traffic volume going up with the expansion, or just handling the current volume better?
Oh, we use 2040 traffic volumes for it.
2040,
So, yeah, so they're increased volumes.
Okay, by how much, do you know roughly?
I don't know, do you know? I don't know the percentage increase, but that's something that we can get to you. Yeah.
Okay.
It's available, it's been on such a long time. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
It's probably in some of the material we had previously, but I just wanted to check on that. Okay, thanks.
It's definitely in the noise analysis itself, and I believe that information's been provided to the village?
Yes.
Okay, yep, it's definitely in there, and it
Right.
should be in the, kind of the header in the first couple pages of it.
Great, thanks.
Trustee Allen?
Yeah, thank you. Brian, thank you. This I found very helpful. And I apologize if you've already answered this elsewhere and it's not directly related to the noise, but I saw you're putting up some new walls. What's the impact on air quality and water runoff, particularly into Flat Creek?
So it can, Tollway uses, so we rely on CMAP and their air conformity analysis that they do. So the project, the Move Illinois program is part of CMAP's air quality monitoring for the region. So CMAP handles air quality monitoring and air quality analysis as part of their overall efforts. I can speak to water quality a bit more, and there's a couple different things, or a few different things that we'll be doing to address water quality as part of the project. One, and I was just looking at the information earlier today, but I don't have it on me, as far as comp storage or detention volumes. Do you know detention volume for?
Yeah, I don't know the detention volumes, but there'll be new surface detention up and down the Western Springs side where we can construct it, find the room to construct it, which would benefit water quality.
So there's that. Then from a water quality specific standpoint, we have a 1-inch water quality volume that we've established for. Are you familiar with the term of water quality volume? It's essentially retention rate. So detention is you slow the water down, hold it for a little bit of time, and then it goes on. Retention is you grab it and hold it and don't let go of it. So we've got a 1-inch water quality volume that we've set for the corridor, and that is going to be achieved through, in our detention basins, we'll set the outlets a little bit higher, so there's a volume of water that stays in there and infiltrates into the ground. We've got stormwater BMPs such as bioswales and things like that that we're going to be using for stormwater treatment. So we've got those two aspects, mainly the water quality volume goal, and that's by watershed of meeting that 1-inch volume restriction throughout the corridor for each watershed that we pass through. On another side of water quality, and again, came with noise in mind and not necessarily all the water quality aspects of the project. But one thing that we're going to have to do is significantly reduce our salt use, if not offset some of our salt use throughout the corridor. So the Tollway has to secure, and this is something I oversee as well, a 401 water quality certification from the IEPA. And as part of that, it goes through an anti-degradation review. That anti-degradation review, the IEPA is looking at it to make sure that we're not further degrading the waters of the state. And it has been determined in coordination with the IEPA that the downstream, ultimate downstream recipient of all Tollway stormwater is impaired for chlorides. What impaired means is it exceeds water quality standards, and you can't put more of whatever that pollutant is into that stream or that waterway because it's impaired. So as of my permitting time frame, we had a tonnage of rock salt that we were using, and I can't put any more of that in. So lack of better terms, we're kind of handcuffed to where we were as far as our salt use, and we'll have to, the Tollway will have to either explore opportunities to reduce it ourselves by either becoming much more efficient in our salt application when our operations, so moving more towards liquid de-icers, or we'll have to, if we can't effectively do that ourselves, we'll have to seek partnerships with municipalities and see if they could effectively reduce their salt application rates. And that partnership is kind of a grant process where we would look to you to say, hey, can you effectively reduce our target goal with communities as a 20% reduction? And we can partner on cost to try and get to that 20% reduction. So yes, water quality is on the forefront of the project and things that we're addressing.
Thank you.
So you have a 1-inch retention, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
throughout the corridor?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it does that increase the retention here? Will it help with flooding of Flat Creek and other areas, or?
The retention is strictly a quality side and not quantity side. The additional storage that we'll be providing, the additional detention storage that we'll be providing throughout the Flat Creek watershed will assist in addressing flooding issues. So our drainage criteria is such where we can't increase release rate, so whatever the volume release rate is, so whatever the speed and volume is that water is leaving our facility right now, our right-of-way, into Flag Creek, we can't increase it as part of this project. So at a minimum, that has to stay the same. And we're looking for ways to improve upon that, and that is with some additional, so hypothetical number, because I don't have it, say we need 5 acre-feet of additional detention as part of this. Something that we're looking to do is provide, say, 7, 8, 10 acre-feet of storage, additional storage, that will help alleviate, we'll call it regional detention, that helps alleviate that downstream flooding issues. So it's something that we're actively exploring, and it's in our design, in our efforts.
Thank you.
But to build on President Gallagher's comment, isn't some of the design still not known, like particularly about near the oasis, that you may do additional types of construction depending how that evolves?
The shape of the oasis, we're not clear.
The oasis
Yeah.
is not finished. That's.
Could you get into the mic, please?
The oasis is, we don't have final plans for the oasis at this time.
But this will all be taken into account as, yeah.
Any additional impervious that goes on to the oasis, there's not a lot of room for additional impervious because it's essentially
Right.
one big asphalt concrete parking lot. But if for whatever reason there were to be some additional impervious that were to go there, it would be taken into consideration, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from trustees?
No, I do have two.
Oh, sure.
So,
Village Manager Belknap.
I just wanted to comment on, I know that trustee Rudolph asked about the berm by the Park District. I believe there was also some discussion, I'm not sure if it went any further, about putting some trees on there, some pines and so forth that, you know, are also very attractive and could also help with the noise there. Is that, do you know if that is?
Still planning.
Still planning.
That's still in development, but yes, we're still talking about that.
Okay.
Still planning and in development.
And then with regard to technology, could you just maybe give a really brief overview of how it's changed over the years as to where, you know, we were back in, you know, the 90s or so, how has that noise wall changed? Is it a better quality one than the wood or bamboo ones that we had or so?
So the technology, I guess, can't really speak eloquently or knowledgeably about technology changes, but the walls that will be put in will be concrete and from a structural standpoint, they're arguably more sound and less prone to rotting, weathering, things along those lines. The wooden noise walls meet the noise reduction coefficients. So Federal Highway Administration is partnered with, or relies on ASTM standards for noise reduction coefficients with respect to the material type. So making sure that the passage of energy through that material is such that it meets their standards. And I can't speak to if FHWA has updated that coefficient in the last 10, 20 years, but I can say that concrete is highly effective in reducing noise levels.
And I just wanted to mention, maybe some of our residents have seen the noise walls that they're putting up on 88 now, and there's one over a bridge that has it's glass or plexiglass,
Yep.
I'm not sure what it is, but that's just for bridges, correct, or?
It can be implemented anywhere, but that would be the only locations that we would be utilizing it. And the reason for it is that bridges are a bit different than just the standard on the side of the road. in that you have loading considerations for bridge failure to take into account. So you're going to put thousands of pounds of something new onto a bridge. Does that bridge need to be fully reconstructed to be able to withstand that new weight? Or can you put something on there that doesn't stress the loading capacity of that bridge to a point where it makes it subject to failure? So that's why alternative materials are most often used on bridges, is that it reduces the overall, call it magnitude, build of the bridge, and that's why they're not necessarily used elsewhere. So we have no intent of using an alternative material along any main line portion of the roadway, but for specific bridge crossings, it will be evaluated if that bridge can if the bridge can withstand the loading of a concrete wall versus an alternative material type. But whatever alternative material type may be placed there, per Federal Highway Administration standards, it meets the noise reduction coefficients. It meets that requirement of effectively reducing the energy transmission of noise. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? At this time, I open the meeting up to the public. If you have any questions for Mr. Wagner, I ask that you come up and so that you may have the mic, give your name, and then your question. They'll come up.
Actually, why don't you guys hang on to the handhelds, and there's a mic at that podium.
And I can just answer up here?
Yeah. Or actually, have the residents go up to the podium.
Oh, okay.
Because this way.
On camera.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Just one at a time, please.
Oh,
sure, of course. We aren't reserving
Kathy
much.
Masali, and I live at 49
If you could actually stand in, like right in front of the podium. There you go.
Like right here?
Okay, you guys take the handheld. Residents, don't use the handheld. Okay?
Okay.
There we go. Sorry about that.
This is
Take
Dan, our
two.
sound, and he gets it out to the home, so.
Camera right up there.
Too many barriers.
My name is Kathy Masali, and I live at 4912 Creek Drive in Western Springs, which is in Commonwealth. And I have a couple of questions. I haven't been to as many meetings of late, so you mentioned 12 lanes. I thought it was going to be more lanes. I thought there was going to be 2 flex lanes. Is it 14 lanes or 12 lanes?
There are 6 through movements through in this section, and about the whole section we're going to build a flex lane on both sides of the northbound and southbound. The flex lane is a wide inside shoulder, and it'll be utilized for the most of the time as a wide inside shoulder, similar to what's happening up on I-90 right now.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what they're doing on I-90.
Yeah, go to the first slide. Yeah. Well, that just the full length of the project, starting from 95th Street going all the way up to Balmoral, will have a flex lane. In this section, it'll have a uniform width of 16 feet, whereas your normal inside shoulder is 12 feet.
And will that be for like construction vehicles, or I don't understand, is it going to be like in the morning we all go this way and in the evening we all go that way?
It could be, but that's not how it's going to be utilized. It's primarily for incident management. So when there's a breakdown or a crash, it could be used for maintenance. It could be used for snow storage. It could be used as a future bus lane.
The reason I was asking is because I wanted to know whether those lanes, which I'm assuming would not have been considered in your noise analysis. You would have considered 12 lanes, not 14 lanes.
Go ahead. So right now we don't have no intention on using them as a general purpose lane.
So they would not have been included.
Correct. But the volume of traffic is the main consideration, and we have 2040 traffic projections. So regardless if it's on not one lane, because one lane is going to be congested, all the time at 2040, but regardless if it's 6 or 10 lanes, the traffic volume doesn't change, and thus the traffic, the amount of energy that is generated from the pavement or the tires on the pavement doesn't change regardless of if they're on 6 or 7 lanes.
You say the number of vehicles won't increase with the number of lanes?
Excuse me, sir, if you'd like to address, please come up and state your name and address your question.
So the intent is to use it, so we call it a flex lane because it provides some flexibility in use. Right now, our goal is to use it, or more or less intended to use it for bus transit. So provide similar, I don't know if you're familiar with what PACE does on 55, I-55. We're doing something similar to that on I-90, and that will have PACE buses riding through the shoulder to provide kind of a bus rapid transit of a sort.
Okay, just 2 more quick questions. One is there anywhere where we can get the noise analysis?
Yes.
It's on our website.
It's on our website.
And we also have a copy at the library, and also we have a copy at the front desk too.
Thank you very much. Also, last question is, you mentioned that through the area of Commonwealth, you're going to move the wall actually 10 feet closer to the center of the tollway. Why, if you're putting a flex lane and you need that lane, why are you moving it 10 feet closer? My understanding was because you want to put the water ditch on our side?
There is, right now, the drainage is an open ditch, and it's on the tollway side of the noise wall. So what we need to do, whether it's an open ditch or a closed pipe, we're gonna, because of all of the infrastructure we need to put in, it's better to put the noise wall a little closer to the center line, at up to 10 feet. I'm not exactly sure in the Commonwealth it'll be something like that. And then we got to figure out how to get the drainage through. Now, it's not the drainage from the tollway. The water from the tollway, we're going to have a pipe that'll carry the drainage from the tollway. This is just the drainage from behind the wall. That's too.
I'm sorry, I don't understand which way you mean behind the wall.
On the house side of the wall.
Residence
Yeah.
side.
So we're just, all we have to do is pick up and you know, compared to the amount of water coming off the tollway, it's a smaller amount of water. But we'll have pipes in the tollway that'll be collecting the stormwater off the tollway
And where will they be taking that stormwater?
to the detention ponds. So we'll be routing. There are some new detention ponds proposed in the Commonwealth area, and they'll be routed to those new detention ponds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, did you have some questions you could, this gentleman, yes.
Sure. I'll go next.
Oh.
My name is
Sorry,
Scott
I
Merrifield.
forgot.
I'm 5010 Fair Elms in Western Springs. One of my questions is, you're going to have a 40% increase in number of lanes. And yet you say that vehicle traffic will not be increased on that number of vehicles?
I did not say that. It said we used, in our modeling effort, we use current traffic counts, and then we use 2040 traffic projections. So yes, traffic is projected to increase. The noise analysis, which shows those differences, is available here, the library, and on the website.
Just kind of give me a range what level increase it will be?
I don't have that information. I can't tell you right now, but.
Right, agree. It's 2 to 3 decibels if there were no walls.
But it's specifically traffic volume. All right. Yeah, he's asking traffic volume.
I guess I don't understand exactly what that means from the increase standpoint. You're talking about decibel increase of 3 decibels, but 40% increase in lanes, and you're only gonna get a 2, what's the current decibel level? Average coming across the Western Springs?
Each area is kind of specific to itself, but we'll get,
In 2015, it was 72.
it's a range, so for recording purposes, or transmission purposes, it's a range between 67 to, or 66 to 67, 72 to 75. Again, there's a number of factors that play into the specifics of what the noise levels will be and are.
I guess my question is that the wall is trying to reduce 8 decibels?
Our goal is for it to provide an 8 decibel reduction, yes.
The current wall is how much higher than the grade level of tollway? Through 55th to 47th, which is, I'm being very parochial here. That's where I live.
Probably averages 16 feet, like that.
No, that's the whole time, that's the height of the wall. I don't even think it's that high. I'm talking from the grade level to the top of the wall.
Grade of?
The grade level of the tollway.
Okay.
To the top of the wall. I think those are the terms you should be speaking into.
So that's what the top of wall elevation, when I say 16, 18, 14, 12 feet, is relative to pavement elevation.
So how much higher is this wall going to be versus the other one? Because the current wall.
If I can interrupt again, sorry.
Let me just finish my question.
Well, we got the answer.
Let me finish my question. The current wall starts well below the grade level of the tollway.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask how much higher the new wall is going to be relative to that.
In the area of Commonwealth?
Yes.
Yeah.
John, can you use the microphone, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I won't say on the microphone. Anyway, I just did twice. It's going to be probably on the order of 2 feet taller, at least. It's going to be at.
So how much higher than the grade level will it be?
I'm saying the existing wall is sitting. The new wall is going to be off the back of the shoulder, and it's going to be a couple of feet taller than the existing wall. Is what's projected.
How much higher is it going to be than the grade level?
16 feet.
That 16 feet from the ground up.
No, not from the ground up, from the grade level of the tollway.
16 feet up from the profile grade level.
Right.
Top of the wall.
One thing I want to get away from it is we can nitpick a height, but the goal of noise walls are to provide a noise reduction. And in the area of Commonwealth, it's approximately, everybody's getting approximately a 10 decibel reduction throughout the Commonwealth area. So it's a very effective noise wall that's being provided
I
there.
can see the height of the trucks going by. So it's not 16 feet above
So-
the grade level.
The top of the truck isn't the noise generator.
I don't care.
The wheel of the truck
We're talking-
is, so.
I don't mean to be so argumentative, but you're talking about grade level of the tollway and the start of the wall now. It is well below the grade level of the highway. If it's going to be 16 feet higher than the grade level, the new wall is going to be exceedingly higher than the old wall.
The top of wall elevation.
And I just ask that the Board of Trustees and the village pay attention to that type of a
I'm listening.
detail.
Yes.
I'm listening.
It has big impact, and I'll just make a couple other comments. I don't want to get into too much details.
Well, we have many people here with questions, so we
I'll
don't
just
want to.
make Two more real quick ones, and I'll just leave them, and I want to ask for the answers.
And the ultimate
Wind-
goal is to
noise is-
reduce the decibel levels.
Wind carries noise.
Yes.
And direction of noise is directional.
Yeah.
As it comes around through the oasis, the tollway turns and then comes back north. So if you have a directional, it comes southwest towards Western Springs. The wind is southwest towards Western Springs. I would ask that the tollway take a look at that area where it curves and comes back, because that's all gonna get pushed towards Western Springs, and that should be taken into consideration with the wall.
So with the new wall that we're going to be putting around the oasis, we're going to be putting up some more abatement there to prevent that noise being captured there. And then the top of wall elevation above the pavement, so from top of wall height is 18 feet above proposed pavement.
That will work into Commonwealth as well?
That's the Commonwealth area. We were just looking at the cross section here.
Oasis, not Commonwealth.
Sorry if I
Well,
can't,
we
hang on
were-
a second. Let me just, I'm listening to your questions, and I think I can provide some answers to you. So there are changes that are happening, and all this information, exactly what you're looking
Rocco,
for.
state your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rocco Zucchero. I work with the Totally Head Up the Planning Department. Is exactly what you're looking for. The existing roadway profile, that's what you're talking about, in the existing wall height. The future roadway profile is actually getting lower in your area, and the noise wall is getting higher. So you are getting a combination of a lower roadway profile plus a higher wall in this area. We have the exhibits. That's exactly what I was trying to say. That's on your website right now. The information is available, and you can see it exactly to your exact question.
So for all of you that are interested in seeing the profiles, Appendix B of the noise analysis, that's on the website in here.
Thank you. This young lady has been waiting very patiently. Thank you.
My name is Laurel Carlo. I live on Garden Avenue, just off of Maple. And if anyone's familiar with that, Maple goes right into the footbridge across to Hinsdale. And I hope I can call you Ingrid, but I thought your idea of, first of all, I have to disagree with you that the berm is effective. It is not all that effective. We're on Garden, it's the tollway, western Garden, and I understand the whole plan of it, if you're right on it, it's effective. But we're up 2 blocks away and we hear traffic. The idea of trees on the top of it is genius, I think, because it's just one more way to push, I would think, I don't know that much about it, but to push the noise up and over. My other question is about, so the bridge, the wall is gonna come from the south as far as Maple because we have the footbridge and the berm's on the other side. So I'm assuming there's no overlap as you were talking about previously, because it's just a berm and then a bridge and then a wall?
Because of the pedestrian overpass.
Because of the
there would-
footbridge, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any opportunity to overlap, if you can comment on that.
If you could comment on that would be good.
Yeah. Do you have a clicker? Yeah, Brian's gonna, there you go. Okay, so I believe you're talking about that, and so the south end of that, where there'll actually be an overlap, where the noise wall will overlap beyond where the berm exists. So that gap will be closed.
And where would that be? Like the south end being what, how far south?
Whatever that first street south of the berm is that Maple?
Yeah, that might be it.
That's Maple, right. Maple or Walnut. It's Walnut, thank you. So there'll be an overlap there. So what we've got shown is in yellow, that berm, either the blue wall will go further north or the yellow berm will be, it actually is further south.
So there will be a type of an overlap.
There'll be an overlap there.
Overlap.
So right at the pedestrian overpass, we do have a gap, and we're going to have to try to figure out a way to fill that gap. If we can slide the noise wall up underneath the pedestrian bridge, that we've done it that way before. That detail hasn't been worked out yet, but we are aware of that potential for that gap there at Maple.
On Maple, yeah. Thank you, don't forget about us. Thank you.
Brian or John, was part of the noise study, was that done at that location? You know, what the residents talking about, the yellow area, was there a receptor study done there, a decibel study done at that location?
He's got it in hand, so he'll be able to look at it better. The receptor was at Walnut?
Could you state it for the record so the residents can hear?
Okay. Trying to find the pedestrian bridge. Okay.
That's it.
Yep. So the receptor was placed here. Is where the receptor was placed. Now.
Where exactly?
Walnut?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's real close.
Distances. Yeah, right around there.
That was an actual model.
Yeah. So that was a monitoring location where we validated the model. So it wasn't just a receptor. That the model was validated there, and it was found to be valid.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Hi there, Laura Ozarka at 1443 Willow. So my backyard is on the other side of the rec center. And so specifically, can you, actually that's the slide I need. No, you can go back. So my house is right there. And this is the maintenance yard right here. And so just to dovetail on what was mentioned with the physics of sound, you've got weather moving from west to east, and you've got sound ricocheting off here, which seems to be a park, and I can't understand why there's no people over there, which is different than Spring Rock, but that's the side. So you've got sound ricocheting up, coming down here. These backyards, in my yard right now, where there was no sound receptor, I believe, it's 80 decibels on many days when there's any kind of freeze. So you've got sound, you've got weather bringing sound right here, right to these houses. And I know this is a maintenance yard, and there are some berms that does not block the noise. And you've also got a preschool where there's kids playing outside a lot. And those young ears subjected to decibels of 80 is not healthy for them. I know 85 is what I'm a doctor, is what we consider in medicine dangerous sound levels. And so I'm not a pediatrician, so I'm not sure what the sound level is. So I think you maybe need to relook. I know it's a maintenance yard, but if you put your study decibel meter right here, that doesn't account for weather. There's no sound walls over here. Whatever sound is coming from the expressway is going to ricochet here. I think you need to close that gap in there, both for the preschool and for the residents living in that neighborhood.
Okay, that's a good point. I don't know if that was looked at.
I did bring it up to Rocco at the meeting at LT. A lot of people brought up a lot of things.
Mhm.
So I just want the village to at least be aware that we also need to think about the Kensington kids who are out there playing. So I don't know if that's considered an actual person because it's not a house.
Can you identify that school? Have we identified?
It's the rec center.
Yeah, the school is, the school's over here. Yeah, actually, so here's my house, the school's right behind, so that's within your yellow zone right there.
Right, and then that identified the worst case model receptor. So I believe we actually modeled the school as the worst case.
So when you modeled the school, did you take readings? Did you take them multiple times a day with windy weather conditions? How many trials did you do? I looked on my phone to try to look at the report. I know it was small, but I didn't see multiple trials, what your averages were.
Right, the closest monitor location was here in Spring Rock Park, and then just north at
Right, so I guess that wouldn't take into
Mr.
mind, where
Ziegler.
you guys modeled does not take into consideration wind, weather, and ricocheting off an existing wall by that park
Well,
on the Hinsdale side.
the model does take into account everything within the 500 feet. So I believe the school is within the model.
So I am
area.
farther than the school, and it's 80 in my backyard, so you're welcome to stick a receptor right in my backyard. There are days where I can whisper across my yard, but you put a breeze in or an unseasonably warm or cool day, and it's like a roaring freight train. We knew it when we moved in. I get it. But if you have an opportunity, even when there's not, but if you have the opportunity to remedy what is wrong and to the berms, we've got trees, we've got all that. I think you need to physically put a receptor in that area where you know that there's going to be kids.
Understood. In the amount of overlap that's proposed.
There's no overlap.
Yeah.
It's naked.
So.
Yeah.
Not
So there's a little bit of overlap.
No, I'm
That's
talking
you.
this area right here.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little bit of overlap that's shown there.
Right, but what I'm saying, everything is coming here on a diagonal. I guarantee that's where the sound is coming from.
So, let's see. You've got actually a large berm, which is that I guess what I'm getting at, I won't argue with you on the physics of the noise and which way the noise is traveling from. We'll take a look at it and make sure that we're providing adequate abatement in your area.
What you're
So,
saying is it's reflecting off of the wall on the west side of the building.
yeah. Yeah.
Because at the rec center, we did have,
I'm sorry, but for everyone at home, if you're speaking, we need you to state your name, please, and your role.
Brian Smith, I'm with AECom, we're a consultant for the tollway.
Thank you.
I think your question was, or part of the question was that the sound is reflecting off the southbound side or the west side of the roadway back. And we did have a receptor at the rec center, not the Kensington School necessarily, but the rec center. I think, it was 62 decibels today, and I think it was projected to be about 3 decibels higher. But we can look at it again and look more at that reflection.
You ought to look at it during multiple times.
Yeah,
I mean,
we look at
as
it.
you know, a trial of one is not effective. So regardless of what your model shows, and you've got multiple issues, including sound wall on the other side, weather, and then areas on the other side of the park where there are no sound walls. This whole section of neighborhood right here is very loud. I mean, Trustee Penrose is right over there as well, but there's also a preschool which is even closer, and depending on where you put in the rec center, the preschool is the western end of that. And my kids are grown, so this is not for my kids.
Well, why is the western side wall higher than our side?
There's a reason, you got a reason.
It's all about providing a goal reduction. And it's, again, getting back to policy side of things, we have a policy to implement it uniformly and fairly throughout our system, regardless of what side of the road you're on or what section of the system you're in. So the specifics as to why I don't have those heights with me, we have them around, but there are specifics that lead to one side being different than the other in effort to get that goal reduction.
I'm sorry, but if you are going to address, you need to come up.
These people.
Just a couple observations. The wall on the Hinsdale side is higher than the Western Springs side. Wind carries noise, and the prevailing winds is southwest towards Western Springs. So the last person was making some observations. When the wind is blowing most of the time this way, it drags across these open berms. There's no open berms on the Hinsdale side. Why should there be any on the Western Springs side? And I would ask the board to ask that consideration of the tollway as well.
Well, I heard the tollway say
Yeah.
they were going to look at that and
Yeah.
review it and take some more modeling.
Thank you. That was clearly understood and heard, and we'll take a good look at that. Yeah, so as I was saying, just from a strictly, removing all the variables that exist out there, is this amount of wall here that overlaps to the south here adequate for addressing wraparound noise for these homes? That's a good question. I don't know. I can't answer that right now without giving it a good look at it. So it's something that we'll evaluate. Yes.
Thank you. Do we have more questions?
Have to read the comments, and
You could state your name,
It may have
please.
more to do with the toll road than
Sir,
to do with the village.
just state your name first,
Oh,
please. Thank you.
Bob, and the last name is Perrin. I'm at 3937 Western Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay. One issue I have is engine braking on the tollway with the trucks, starting at 5:30 in the morning, and I like to sleep till 7. Some days it's just impossible. We need some enforcement, we need some signs out there. I live right up against the tollway. Weekdays, it's tough to get that last hour and a half of sleep.
Sure.
The second one also pertains to the tollway. You seem to be doing work at Ogden Avenue interchange. The trucks start dumping, and they have been doing this for about the last 6 months, dumping dirt into that interchange. And then again, it starts at about 4:30 in the morning. And when they lift the trucks up to dump the dirt out, and they lower them down, once it's empty, that back flap starts slapping against the back of that truck. That starts at about 4:30 in the morning. And I know it's not much the village can do, because I don't think they have any authority over the toll road. But I'd like to bring it to somebody's attention. That,
Oh, thank you.
You know, a good neighbor.
Exactly. And I know for the construction itself that the tollway has said that they need to abide by our municipal construction hours. I'm not sure if that also extends to this kind of activity, but maybe that's something we need to look at, because certainly we shouldn't have that at 4:30 in the morning, right outside your window.
It's been going on since early fall.
Yeah,
Well,
we've been
thank
placing
you.
material there
Yes.
for a while now, so thank you very much for bringing
That
that
opens
to
up
our attention.
another question. Why are you putting that material in there? Are you going to change the configuration of the interchange at Ogden from 8 ramps to 4, just like you have at Willow Road?
I don't know that we have any significant modifications to the Ogden interchange at this point. So that material is being placed there. We've got a project going on I-88 where we were talking about the acrylic noise walls. So we've got a project going on there. We have some excess material as part of that project that would need to be hauled off and thrown away, put in a dump or something like
Right.
that. We have a material need as part of the Central Tri-State project. And so the tollway is just moving that material into the Ogden ramps for a temporary time, and then we'll use the material
So
as
the
part
ramp
of the Tri-State.
configuration's going to stay the same?
There might be some, are we gonna do anything? Minor, very minor.
Minor.
Yeah, we're not gonna completely reconfigure it or add a lot more lanes to it, because there's a whole slew of things, issues that start to pop up with that. The homes that are there adjacent to the forest preserve, it's a difficult interchange to reconfigure. So, yeah, the interchange is staying the same, minor upgrades to it to meet standards, current standards. The material will be moved, and used as part of the Tri-State project. And thank you very much for letting me know they've been dumping there at 4:30 in the morning. I will
Yes.
speak with the project
I'd like to
manager
find
on
out where
that.
they live and go.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll definitely
good.
follow up with
If
the
it happens
tollway.
again, let somebody know, so we know what day, so we can check and find out.
Okay.
Is there a number that we should call, a hotline, or our residents should call, or should they call us first?
So we've got these,
From
we've
what
got
we
these
are
these
working
emails.
with.
Is email sufficient for you, or, okay? Yeah,
And
so
we're
we've got our
working
emails
with the
here.
tollway. We do have a contact at the
Yeah.
tollway that,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
also we were also talking to them about possibly having a line for people to report.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like us to go over, stop and see it.
You can do that too.
Yes.
Very good.
And
Thank you.
I will be in direct contact with that project manager and speak with them on that,
Great.
so. yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, go ahead.
Hi,
Hi.
John Rimley. I live at 3942 Western Avenue. So
Welcome.
I'm right, if you get the Ogden one, on the off-ramp there where the fuchsia meets the purple, I'm right there. That wall is, I mean, I could touch that wall, it's in my yard. So is that not, if you're gonna replace that, is it going to stay right where it is? Or is there any, because it impacts me pretty close.
Yeah, that wall will likely remain in place, yeah, because we're not gonna do any big modifications to the ramp, to the interchange. If we're doing any modifications, it would likely be to the loops, is that correct? Just to kind of maybe smooth out some of the curve
Yeah,
on
because
there
that
or something
off-ramp
like
is
that.
already kind of dangerous, you know,
Yeah.
kind of just squeezes in
Mhm.
there and
Mhm.
almost accidents all the time. And is there a bike path behind any of this too?
No.
A proposed path?
There's something that our Properties and Rec Committee is looking at as a proposed concept for a bike path along Flag Creek from Plainfield Road to approximately 55th Street. But that's just a concept now, and there's no concrete plans for that.
This is you know for that either.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Put the slide back up to the email.
Oh.
Hi, my name's Chuck Herbst, 5028 Fair Islands.
Welcome.
This really doesn't have to do with noise, but I'm just curious. I just had a couple of questions while I had the toll people here. One is in Commonwealth, the wall is moving 10 feet to the west. And you have detention on that's the difference. Is that going to be maintained by the Illinois Toll?
Our detention will be maintained by us, yes.
And you can have it underground and also maybe put a path or something over the top of it if you do an underground?
There's potential to do underground storage. It's more costly and more difficult to maintain. It's a possibility. I don't know exactly what our details are, if we've gotten that far on that. I guess the best thing for water is to keep it open to the air. Anytime you start closing water, putting in pipes, putting it underground, water quality benefits, and I understand necessarily everybody isn't necessarily looking for the best water quality benefit, but more open space or use of land. But water quality benefits go down.
This is a concrete wall. This is just thinking outside the box a little bit. Is there any way to put a cantilever, a 10-foot like path onto that, on the outside of that wall, and hang it like something they do in Europe or China or somewhere else?
Well, the noise wall that you're talking about, this isn't the load bearing. This is just holding itself up.
So it's a tilt-up type wall?
Yeah, this is a piece of, this is a precast concrete panel that's stuck in some H piles. So it doesn't have any real structural, it holds itself up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the tollway? Please, come on up. Oh.
Kathy Bogagan, Commonwealth in the Village. I did read your 300 some odd page report, and the pictures of the monitors for the sound at Commonwealth appear to be in that sound shadow zone. So how could that be accurate if that's where the sound is supposed to be less than if you're further away? And why would they put the monitors in that shadow zone?
That's where the receptor is. So the project got modeled with those walls in place. So we wanted to see how those walls were performing and how they would perform in the future scenario. So they were there monitoring that existing condition to validate that the model's existing condition was accurate. So, I mean, if you move it outside of that shadow zone, then you're not giving an accurate depiction of what the noise levels are in those environments closest and most susceptible to traffic noise.
Wouldn't that mean that you're paying a lot more attention to the people right up against the wall and not the ones a block or two over?
The intent of noise walls is to provide abatement for those first row homes, those first row receptors. And then as that is the primary goal, because those are the homes that have the greatest impact. Not to say that we don't look to provide benefits or reductions beyond that, but our goal is to look at those who are most impacted by noise, and that's those first row receptors, and provide abatement for them.
Aren't the first row people in the shadow?
Well, without that wall being there, they wouldn't have a shadow.
Okay. The report also said that the wall will be down for a year or more. We're hearing 6 months today.
Yep.
Or a construction season. So when you
season.
say construction season, you mean a year?
Typically it'd be
I mean, just
March
be
to
clear.
Yeah.
November.
Yeah.
November.
So we'll be without a wall for possibly over a year.
Not over a year, construction season.
season.
But your report says a year
So
or more.
the report was done as part of kind of the master planning process. So that the report, the analysis was done earlier on. So now as we're advancing our design work and we're hearing from communities and recognizing concerns that there may be, definitely valuing input on consideration for, hey, maybe we need to provide some more length on a wall in locations where there might be schools or things along those lines. We're evolving what we have. So the analysis is just a straight noise analysis, and through detailed design and project scheduling is where we've said, all right, we can do this. I definitely, the last thing I want to do is have a wall down for a 2-year period of time, because I'm going to be hearing a lot from you.
Well, I
during
just
that
can't
two-day
imagine
period.
how dangerous it's gonna be. If a truck went, I'm sure you'll have some kind of barrier.
Oh,
but
the-
You're not
yeah.
gonna stop traffic during this. So, I mean, I've seen fires along the tollway that go over the flames shooting over the wall. And not to mention, in the winter, the salt spray and the dirt and the noise, of course. But
So
it's-
if the wall is down, then it's gonna be an active construction zone. And if it's an active construction zone, it'll be fully blocked off from traffic with barrier walls and things along those lines. Because we have safety of people that are right up against live traffic, that we definitely don't want them getting hit by a car, let alone those cars making it into your yard.
Well, it's
So
just-
safety is a very high priority
It's
of
a
the
big worry
tollways.
for those of us that live along to not have that wall up. We were told at one point that the new wall might go up before the old one came down, but I'm pretty sure that's impossible at Commonwealth. It's not
depends.
possible. I mean, just tell us, because it's not gonna happen.
It's not possible.
Yeah, and yeah. But we've been at other meetings with Illinois Tollway where they told us that that was gonna happen, so I'm just
Yes.
saying. The other thing is, and last question, with the open ditch on the side that was just addressed, from research I've done, you don't just put the ditch, but you put a lovely fence, like a cyclone fence or something, between, so we would have the concrete wall and then some kind of fence? Be honest.
We're gonna certainly try to not do that. The chain link fence, but I'm talking loudly. The chain link fence is to keep people out of a deep ditch. And what we're gonna try to do is to keep the ditches shallow, relatively shallow in Commonwealth, because we're just trying to get the water from, from behind your house down to the detention pond, which is, they're sporadically, they're spaced all the way through the Commonwealth on the west side of the street. So what we're hoping to do is to not have a deep ditch. If we don't have a deep ditch, and we wouldn't need to have a chain link fence. We could, the chain link fence provides access control for the tollway, but the noise, if it's a constant noise wall, that could provide the access control.
Or beautiful rain gardens, think about it.
Rain gardens.
Rain gardens.
We call those
Bad idea.
bioswales.
Thank you.
Either way.
So that's our
Either way, it's
bioswales.
better than fence.
Hi.
I'm Ken Carlo, 4089 Garden. So I live just to the west of the berm that you said you're not going to replace because you said it's highly effective. But is it more effective than if you would put a 16-foot concrete wall there? Because we get a lot of noise there where the berm is.
It's all about height. So 16-foot wall would provide less than a 20-foot berm. Noise reduction than a 20-foot berm would.
And the berm is 20 feet tall.
Yes. Per
20 to 23 feet. Same place with the wall, with the noise wall. So if you want to show it, go to the end, the very end. Okay, so here's a typical. Okay, so here's the top of the existing berm. I believe that says 20 to 23 feet. Where we're going to put the new noise wall would be pretty close to the back side. There'll be a barrier here probably. And the noise wall will go in here. The top of the berm will be taller than the noise walls north of here and south of here. So the 20-foot noise wall, the top of the berm is taller than the noise wall would be. And north of here and south of here, that noise wall is going to go right here off the back of the shoulder.
So do you think we'll see any reduction in the noise we currently hear, or will it be slightly increased from what we currently have?
You should not have a perceptible difference in noise.
So nothing above 3 decibels.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is that the tollway base?
We need to allow everyone to have a chance to speak and ask their questions.
So the center line's higher than the building, correct?
Hi.
Peter Hansen, 1413 Willow.
Nice
I had
to
a
meet
question. Have you made a determination yet on the road surface?
Actually, I'm sorry, if you could kind of towards the center of the podium.
Have you made a determination on the road surface? Yes. And it is?
Asphalt. We'll have an asphalt surface.
Okay.
It's actually a composite pavement, so we'll have a concrete base, but an asphalt surface.
Fine. Great, thank you. And then just a comment to the board. I would encourage you to look at options with the tollway and see if we can come to some sort of agreement to have, I like the suggestion of having the trees on top of the existing berms, and the berms that'll still be in place. I think that not only is it aesthetically pleasing, but I do believe too that would be a good reduction in the wind and the sound coming from the west to the east. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name's Howard Smith. I'm at 4060 Western Avenue. And I just had a question in regards to the drainage on the east side of the berm. Right now, we have 3 or 4 houses there. We have a lake that exists because the drainage, there's supposed to be a drainage pipe that goes underneath the berm between Ogden and my home. And it doesn't drain. And I was just wondering if they're going to make sure that they take care of that.
We're aware of that. So you're north of the pedestrian bridge?
Yes.
Right. We're aware of that condition. We're gonna take a look at it. See, there's supposed to be a pipe in there.
Yeah.
And it's not very effective.
Correct.
We're aware.
Okay.
Right in there.
John, would you be looking at that sooner? I mean, is that something that you would repair before you do this, or is that just part of the?
It'd be a part of the project.
They might have, the drainage pipe is clogged. Problem is, it just becomes one big mosquito swamp.
Right. It's wet back there north of Maple. We're aware of that, and we're gonna see what we can do.
Anyone else?
I have a simple one, I think. Bob Newman, I'm at 5119 Creek Drive at Commonwealth. What year are you supposed to start when you say you're going to start on the east side? And then what year is that we start?
That will start construction work?
Yes.
On the actual tollway itself, correct?
On the actual tollway. When did they take down the fence, the wall?
That's a good question, and I don't know that we have a solid answer on that.
Give me your back. They have to plan that.
We're gonna. We have. There's just been a lot of.
So as far as construction timing, I'll tell you the status of where Rocco Carroll again with the tollway. Construction timing, we are putting the schedule together right now. High level, what our intent is to have our design complete by the end of this year. So again, we're still doing a lot of design work. So your input, the things that we're hearing today, will factor into our design. Construction schedules, we truly don't have them right now. The intent is to have everything complete by 2026 is our goal. Working with the tollway and done many projects, we are going to do all we can to advance those construction schedules. We've already started construction on portions of the corridor. If you've driven on Interstate 294, you've seen a lot of work that's happening from the O'Hare Oasis all the way up to basically O'Hare Airport. That work started last year. We will continue to see a lot more work happening in 2019, 2020, and the stretch from North Avenue to the north. We're looking at an overall construction schedule. The Burlington Northern, the Burlington Northern Bridge over the tollway, that work is scheduled to start later this year. That's a multi-year construction project. Those are the definitives. Our overall construction timeline is taking into account how we maintain 4 lanes of traffic, so we don't want to reduce lanes of, you thought this was an easy question. We don't want to reduce lanes of traffic throughout the duration of construction. We want to make sure that traffic uses the tollway. We don't need them going off onto Wolf Road or LaGrange Road or York 83, different roads like that. So we'll maintain 4 lanes of traffic really to accomplish that. The key thing in this area that has to happen is we have to take the current Burlington Northern Bridge that's over the tollway, and we have to widen that. By widening that bridge, that allows us to shift traffic through on the tollway. So that work will happen in 2019 and 2020. The earliest that you'll see any construction is likely 2020. We will continue to come back here, provide updates, because we're going to do all we can to get out of your way as quick as possible. So on construction timeline, don't know, but Burlington has to be one of the major projects that we have to open up that bridge. We could shift traffic around. That work will start in 2019, likely sometime in 2020. We'll have a sufficient opening. So we are putting the plans together on everything.
The big interchange of 294, 88 to 290, does that have to be done first before they move down our
Excellent question. We're looking at concurrent construction. How do we do all of this? That is a very complex project. Again, our timeline to complete is everything by 2026. You may start seeing some earlier construction contracts coming out. I think it's almost 40 bridges associated with that project, so it's a big construction project. We're looking at everything as a whole, and what we'll ultimately put together is what the construction packages will look like. So looking at how that interchange interfaces with the rest of the roadway, shifting traffic around. Our goal, again, is to maintain that 4 lanes of traffic. So as we know more, as design is complete by the end of this year, we will have more information about the construction timeline, about the number of contracts and how we're going to approach construction. Again, it's not a bad thing that we're still up here in design, because we could actually take your input. So the things that we're hearing today, we can make some changes. So it's not a fait accompli, there's still opportunities to change it. So we come back
I'll
in
ask
another
a
year.
wild one. You gotta take the whole wall down at once.
The noise wall?
Yeah.
Do we have to? That's, again, what we're gonna look at, how we minimize the amount of time that the wall is down, looking at how you deliver the construction project, as Brian said. What we don't wanna do is put a wall up that confines the construction zone and knock the wall down. That's not a good thing for anybody. But we also wanna be respectful to the issues that we've heard tonight from all the residents, not just here, but across the entire corridor. Minimize that amount of exposure where the wall is down and how soon it can get back up. So that's something that we'll have to work with on the contractor to say what's that minimum duration? Does all the wall have to come down at the same point in time? Those things we'll know as we go further along. We truly don't have those answers right now. Understanding those are some of the key issues that we need to consider as part of our design, pass along to our contractors, and then really in construction, we don't go away. Once construction starts, we're still here. So as issues pop up during construction, we continue to be flexible and adapt our schedules to, we want to get out as quick as possible too, at the end of the day.
One more, I just thought of back another time, I heard about some truck stories, truck holding areas, or something like this.
Truck parking, yeah, truck parking is a major issue. At the tollway, you see a lot of what happens at the Oasis today. The trucks just park up and down the ramps. We're looking at opportunities along the entire, it's a 22-mile corridor, so we're looking for opportunities along the entire 22-mile corridor where we could provide new truck parking. We have acquired some land in Burr Ridge for some truck parking, nothing in this area right now, but that's something that we are looking for up and down the entire stretch. Trucks are a product of what we are.
That
So
parking, excuse me, Rocco, that parking on the west side, that's for the
Southbound.
south flowing traffic.
Mhm.
So have you identified any parking, any truck parking on the north side?
Nothing yet. We're working with a couple of municipalities, again, up and
Okay.
down the corridor of those opportunities. There are, yes, there's some very viable locations not nailed down yet that we're looking at truck parking in the northbound direction, because we know we need it, because we don't like seeing the trucks stacked up all along the Oasis ramps. That's not a safe situation. So we do have some ideas, locations identified, not solidified yet.
And you're not looking at Western Springs for that truck parking, you're
No.
looking at other places?
We are not looking at Western Springs, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, as in no, we are not looking.
Just to clarify, thank you. Are there any other questions for the tollway? Now's our opportunity to ask.
I've got one, I'm sorry, I have one follow-up. This is for Rocco. I see on the berm slide that the shoulder is appreciably lower than the center line of the tollway. My question is, sorry about that. The height of the wall versus the center line of the tollway, what's the differential? 6 lanes could be quite a bit of difference.
So it's more of a.
Yeah, I don't have that. There's banking in the area. We've got a big curve, so it would be difficult. We could get that information to you though. We could make that available and give it to the village, and then they would have it. Give you a
Thank you.
range of what that difference is.
It's all relative, versus the Hinsdale side versus our side. Our wall is
I'm
lower.
sorry, if you're going to continue to talk, please come up to the podium.
It's all relative to the height of the Western Springs wall versus the Hinsdale wall. If our wall is slanted below, we're gonna be at a disadvantage again with the noise being southwest directional.
One thing with respect to sound reflection, that was something that was taken into consideration of having parallel barriers. So there's a parallel barrier analysis that was done as part of our noise analysis, and that's noted within the analysis. In the distance of which the barriers are placed apart is such that it's not a concern or it's not an issue with having rebounding noise from the two walls. So instead of wall being higher, projecting noise over to Western Springs has been analyzed and is found to not be an issue.
Okay, shall we make this the list?
Clarification on a comment you made earlier. Your noise abatement, you're only concerned with the first 200 feet from the wall?
Noise abatement is found to be most effective within receptors within the first 500 feet. Primary concern is front row receptors, those who are most impacted by the noise.
If noise goes up and over like this woman saying this, 80 in her yard further away, that's not a concern?
I never said that, sir.
No, I don't.
I think I responded to her saying, I hear your issue and we're going to look into that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, thank you. At this point, we'll close the presentation. Thank you all of our concerned residents for coming out. We appreciate the tollway coming out as well and giving us this opportunity to ask questions directly to them. Thank you very much for attending. You are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. We do have several agenda items that you might find interesting, but I understand if you'd like to take off. Thank you for attending.
Oh, that's not mine. It's been out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Good evening.
You guys are ready for the Tonight Show now.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. Thank you very much, Mr. Reagan. Appreciate it. Thank you. Trustee Sifferman, do we have a motion for ordinance 19-2948?
Yes, Madam President, this matter is brought to this body's attention that would contemplate amending the Western Springs Municipal Code of 1997 as amended, Title VII, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 4, Traffic Schedules, Section 3, Parking Limitations and Prohibitions, relative to posting no parking signs on the north side of Chestnut Street between the west right-of-way line of Grove Avenue and the east right-of-way line of Forest Avenue. That is portrayed in Exhibit 1A in your packet.
Thank
and
you.
that's being advanced for move for adoption by this body.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, at this moment, at this point in the meeting, I'd like to open up the meeting to any comments from residents if they'd like to address the board. We did have comments at our last meeting, but if there's something additional that you would like to say or new, please feel free to address the board. Yes, former trustee Denbeston, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. As President Gallagher said, my name is Lisa Denbeston, 1312 Walker. Thank you for your time tonight and for at the workshop meeting on the 11th to talk about this issue. As I mentioned in the past, as a former trustee and a lifelong resident, I appreciate all the decisions that you have to make at these kind of meetings, especially when you have different perspectives from our residents. I think we're all on the same page with this. Safety is the major concern. I am here in a sense as a former trustee hoping to speak with consideration about current and future boards' decisions. I see two precedents being established with this request that could limit choices for future boards and commissions. Number one, restricting parking on one block based on a couple residents' requests could open a door that you and future village boards and the TNS Commission may have difficulty closing. For example, can any resident request no parking on another resident's block, citing safety concerns? As was mentioned in the meeting, the last meeting, the workshop meeting, this solution is punitive to residents on the north side of Chestnut. They purchased their homes expecting to be able to park in front of their homes. This solution takes away a benefit that they presume they would have with their property and potentially hurts their property values. Homeowners on both sides of Chestnut are impacted by this proposal. Homes on the south side will now have twice the cars in front of them that they have today. The other precedent that I see is that the expertise and knowledge of the Transportation Safety Commission, as well as the Public Health and Safety Committee, I perceive to be bypassed on behalf of one resident's preferred solution. The perception I have is that the safety concern was presented to both the commission and this committee with a predefined solution of adding a parking restriction. This doesn't give the commission or the committee, who have expertise in safety issues, the opportunity to evaluate the situation and to determine the best solution with their own evaluations, with their expertise in mind. I appreciate the time and expertise offered by those volunteer residents on the TNS Commission, as well as obviously the trustees on the committee. Their ability to weigh other options seems to have been cut off by a resident asking for a predefined solution. So many safety options are available: sidewalk or crosswalk signs and markings. Was there a school buddy system pursued with Laidlaw and or McClure to help with that? What about street crossing safety education at the schools? For this intersection, I especially liked what TNS approved in November at Hillgrove and Central. A marked crosswalk with portable crosswalk sign in the middle of the road. Signage in the middle of the road would most likely slow traffic down because the vehicles would have to navigate around the sign. So as a whole, I am requesting and proposing that the board send this request back to Transportation and Safety to weigh all the options available to them and develop the best solution, considering one that minimizes the impact to other residents. Again, thank you very much for your time and giving this situation your full consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this issue? Yes, of course.
I'm Janice Hemauer, and I live at 1306 Chestnut Street. And again, I appreciate taking your time. My husband Steve over here, and he's been a lifelong resident of Western Springs, and he and I have both lived at Chestnut Street for almost 22 years. And first of all, I want to clarify something. I think at the last meeting that we were not there, there may have been a misrepresentation of our opinion. We want to assert that we are not in support of the parking restriction on the north side of Chestnut Street. We both think that imposing the parking restriction on an already limited parking street, given the two, the way Prospect and then Forest, and has the two T intersections, creates a problem, and for pedestrians to cross when they're crossing from south to north. And we feel that they're both some more effective ways for the pedestrians to cross safely on those intersections, as I outlined on the February 1st meeting. As I stated then, and according to the Chief of Police, Brian Bunce, the village really doesn't want the children to cross at Chestnut and Prospect. Where they would prefer the students to cross is at Forest and Chestnut, which is why Chestnut and Prospect is an unmarked crosswalk. I suggested to the village on the February 1st meeting that portable crosswalks might help steer the children and kind of get the flow of traffic to a safer crosswalk. And this still remains my suggestion as well. And that I also want to reiterate, Brian Bunce had said at our very first meeting, there have been no parking tickets ever on Chestnut Street. And there has only been one traffic violation that has occurred in the past 5 years, and it has not been related to a child crossing. There's also been several references to the LT bus crossing. However, there is plenty of clearance for a bus to cross if a car is parked on the north side of the street. I've measured it, it's almost 35 feet. I don't think a bus has a problem with that. Moreover, on the January 24th meeting of the Traffic Commission, they clearly stated that neither the bus company nor LT has made any complaints on a bus having trouble turning there, so they said that there was not a problem. Secondly, I do want to highlight that the original petition did not have the required 60% of the affected blocks signatures, which I know I spoke to you about, Alice. And in fact, there were only 27% of the 1300 block of Chestnut Street. One of which was, there were 3 signatures actually, one of which was the son of a homeowner. And in fact, I made up a new petition and got, I presented it to you and a new petition with 65% of the, there, which suggested some of the things that I had recommended, for example, like the portable crosswalks. Every house that I went to, the 1300 block of Chestnut Street, they were all in favor of something like that versus limiting our parking on the north side of the street. I think I agree with what, I know I agree with what Lisa was saying, that it does set a dangerous precedence. For example, I was trying to cross the street over by the Hillgrove and Lawn the other day, and I almost got hit by a car. So does that mean I can now suddenly make a motion to get some traffic, you know, implemented, and I can get a few signatures on there? In fact, it would only be 3 and get a traffic thing. I think that you need to consider how you're taking this here. And anyway, my last point I want to make, and I did not make this at the last meeting because I did have this information. I think one of the trustees said at the meeting that I was not attending at, that this decision would be punitive to our block, the 1300 block, in affecting the property values. I did actually go to 3 real estate agents and spoke to 5 real estate agents about how this would affect our block, given the unique situation of the configuration of the block. It was a resounding, yes, it will have effect, because of the way the street is configured. Basically, it would not only affect the one side of the block, because, for example, my side, I would have to park on the 1200 block now, or on Prospect Street, or I have to go 3 houses down to park on the other side of the street. That will all only be my option. The other side will have now twice as many cars parked on the one side. And frankly, how does this benefit children crossing now in the morning from going south to north? So for all of these reasons, I'm really hoping that you reconsider what, you know, the decision to have this move forward. One of the things that I have suggested is that the Laidlaw, they're looking at the whole Laidlaw school in starting in the spring. I know I've spoken with Brian on the phone several times. I really would like this to go back to the Traffic Commission to see if there could be another way, such as the portable signs, to get kids to cross at a safer place, which is, as Brian and I have spoken, at the Forest area, and see if we could get even some monitors to see what is really going on there, rather than making a knee-jerk reaction that would put something punitive on our house. And I think I've said it all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, please, come ahead.
Hi, guys. My old bones. Got 2 things.
How are the
your name, please.
How are the
Jack
butterflies
Hagan,
doing?
5021 Commonwealth. I saw on the internet, Hinsdale's just approved a drug drop-off, you know, excess drugs that you don't want anymore. Clarendon Hills has one. I called Western Springs about a year ago or so for myself, and I didn't have any. You folks, I guess we don't have any program.
Oh.
And I was just curious if it's a big effort to have something like that or not.
Well, LaGrange Police Department has a drug drop-off right there on Burlington, close by. So, and things like this, we would like to partner with our neighboring communities so that we can all kind of work towards safe disposal.
Your suggestion is to use LaGrange?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing, sir, is I learned that Google has an app now that you can punch in to find the closest drug drop-off place that will accept.
Hinsdale probably is the closest for me.
Oh.
Because I'm right over here on Commonwealth. Secondly, I got my terrible tax bill the other day.
Yes.
And noticed that, well, I have it in the car, thank God, but it's final column on the right is the percentage that you're able to support the pension and pension program. And there were 10 lines, and there was one of them over there, more money than necessary. Most of the school districts were at 80%, and the county was at 43, 36 or 38. Western Springs was 47.03. Now what does that mean?
Grace, can I throw that to you, please?
I believe the way the county is presenting the information is that they want to give all the taxing districts the ability to show what their outstanding liability for pensions, for all pensions going across, whether it's 1 or 3. A village has 3 pension funds, and they are representing what the liability is for those particular groups. And that's updated with older, like the information is from 2017, I believe, for the village. So that needs to be updated, but that's what they're trying to represent as liability for the pension fund.
What was updated? What was
It doesn't change much from year to year for the village.
Is that a good number, 47%?
Relatively speaking, it just means that 47% of our liabilities are funded.
I don't think that's a good number. Do you?
No, but that's
Oh,
just-
okay, you said no. What should it be? High school's 80%, the other school districts are 80%.
I'm not sure I understand what the other districts are at right now, so I can only speak for the village.
My tax bill has the word percentage of it, maybe with 10
Mr.
10
Kagan.
districts if they have it in the tax bill. And,
If you want, I can talk to you tomorrow about that, because I haven't seen the tax bill, so I don't know what they're representing.
well, I would assume that Colin was relative to everybody's expenditure for that, our responsibility for those future expenditures. Now, if you only funded it for 47.03% of your future pension responsibilities,
Mr. Kagan?
I don't know if that's a good figure or not.
Well.
Why would somebody be at 80?
Mr.
If they
Kagan?
get
No, I
47?
can't speak for the school districts.
No,
But
I'm
the
saying,
school
why would
district.
somebody be at 80 if you only had
Okay,
to get
but
47?
school pension is a state pension, which means that that's not at 80%. So again, I can't answer that question for the
Okay.
school
All
districts.
right.
I don't know what that number represents. We have 3 pension funds. The police pension fund's at 52% funded, and IMRF is about 88% funded, and the fire pension is over 97% funded. So those are our 3 funding categories.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes.
I'm just wondering why.
I can't speak for the county what they choose to publish.
Mr. Kagan, if you would like to bring in your bill for Director Turi
You're
to
gonna
look
pay
at
it?
and go over.
Thank you very much.
Yes. She'd be happy to go over the bill
No, she
with you,
just
but to
explained
ask
something
her
me,
to,
though, that the individual
okay.
funds are properly funded, 80-some%, 86%. That's
The
excellent.
fire pension.
That's why the number disturbed me was the 47%. And I think she's answered the fact that that's not the true figure as far as your.
No, and we report the pension funding every year in our annual report, and
Okay.
we're gonna present the pension funds in
All right.
about 3 months.
Okay, fine.
All right,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you,
I'll
thank
sleep
you.
tonight.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions related to the issue before the board regarding Chestnut Street? Okay, if not, oh.
I take,
well, Jim, I'll just close the public comment now, and then if the
Great.
trustees would like to comment, please feel free. Jim?
I take issue with the fact that it was represented to us 2 weeks ago that the residents on the north side of Chestnut were in favor of this. And now I'm hearing from a resident who said we clearly were not in favor of this.
They said a few residents were in favor. I don't think they ever represented that all residents were in favor. But
I thought that they all were, but be that as it may, I don't think the amendment's a bad thing, but I find it overly restrictive with the 24 hours.
Okay.
And I'm cognizant of the fact that bad things happen at crossings, and something bad happened in Downers Grove last week, which I know something about, a young child or a young woman. But here I feel that the 24-hour ban is overly restrictive for the reasons that we're setting out to, prevent it. And plus, it is a burden on the owners of the house and who they sell it to. And now I'm hearing that real estate agents have said that yes, that is true. Just because the east side of Chestnut is 24 hours up until this point, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should go along with that for this area as well. And I think this matter should be explored more fully with, again, I have a problem with the ban, and I'm hearing some other good ideas that might be maybe even more beneficial for the students that do cross there.
I have some common themes as well in terms of feedback. Again, I don't argue that safety is an issue. It's clear that something should be done. I don't think that this is the appropriate solution. My concern is if we do this and an incident does happen, what does that mean in terms of liability it opens up for the village because we didn't do enough perhaps? I think it is an unfair burden on the residents on that side of the street, while then shifting, then traffic and parking onto the other side for those residents, so they'll then be fighting for parking spaces in front of their own homes. And I do really feel that it is a poor precedent. I think that's come up a couple of times, and this is dealing with one specific instance in one specific location, but then how does that apply to other places? And so nothing really in terms of new ideas, but just reinforcing those same themes. And I would suggest that it's sent back for further analysis.
Okay.
I have some comments to make.
Sure.
First of all, I take exception with any characterization that the process thus far has been a knee-jerk reaction. This matter was considered by the Traffic and Safety Commission. They elicited testimony, reviewed exhibits, listened to the arguments, and in a 3-to-1 vote advanced this to the Public Health and Safety Committee that I chair. And at that meeting, we considered once again the testimony of the proponents and the opponents of this. None of the arguments and issues that were raised here by a former trustee were ever presented to either one of these bodies that talked about the danger of a precedent. We took our responsibility and duty to take action that ensures, in our opinion, the safety of the residents, particularly those youngsters who may be distracted in the early morning on their way or after school. And so my belief is that this ordinance should be passed. I think it's consistent with the parking restrictions further east on Chestnut, and this stretch just provides the continuity with the no parking signs, and for that reason that is the basis of my support, that this went through the proper channels and is reaching this final destination for consideration by this body.
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. Any other comments? I do want to mention that I feel this is a unique configuration of blocks where Prospect essentially dead ends into Chestnut mid-block. And because of that, if you look at it as a whole, the impacted blocks do include Prospect as well as Chestnut. However, I also think that this matter was brought in a rather a contentious way, and because of that, it's become a bit more of an issue than it otherwise might need to be. Certainly, we are very sensitive to the issues of the residents on Chestnut, as well as to the concerns of the parents of the young children who are crossing the street to get to school. And ultimately, you know, it's our job to make our village as safe and walkable for pedestrians, especially young pedestrians, as they make their way to school or to the pool, which is going south down Prospect Avenue as well. To me, that's why the taking a more limited no parking sign would not really work, because kids go to the pool in the summertime at all hours, but perhaps maybe we can find something that would be like, that would allow parking in the evening. But I do think that we need to think about the safety of our pedestrians, especially our youngest pedestrians, first and foremost. Trustee Rudolph or Trustee Allen, did you want to comment as well?
And just how, in other situations in the past, have we evaluated a need like this? What, I mean, what is typical?
For no parking zonage?
Yeah.
If you could speak to that, Chief Buds, are you aware?
Sure, the same manner this would. It comes up occasionally. Our typical request is stop signs usually, but on occasion we get a parking one. This is the first one we've had in a while. But we would handle the same way that our neighborhood traffic manual suggests. Hear everybody out, and this one has been more contentious than any other one, especially for a parking situation. I never think there's one perfect solution. I think we look for the best options. And even if this were to pass, not that I'm in favor one way or the other, we would continue to evaluate it. Just like the tollway folks said, that even if this goes through, the job doesn't end there. We're going to continue to evaluate pros and cons of it. May have to go back to TNS for further evaluation, or at your direction. So we constantly are looking at this. But like Trustee Sifferman said, TNS did thoroughly review this. Even before their meeting, they were prepped at the meeting, and Public Health, I believe, all comments from all sides were heard and considered, even tonight, and great points have been made. The matter that went before TNS and before you now is for these parking signs. If there's something else that needs to be looked at, my recommendation would go back to TNS for crosswalk signs or whatever like that, but I think we need to focus just on these no parking signs here tonight.
Do you, in hearing the residents and hearing the concerns even that we've heard represented tonight, in addition though, do you is there time spent by any officers kind of in observation, like during the before and after school hours?
Sure, we have certain directed patrols. I have limited resources, so this is one of many locations we look at. And I talked to the folks that are on Chestnut that regardless of where this goes, when the weather starts warming up, we're going to put up some of our portable speed signs that you see throughout, which is a fantastic tool because it does a bunch of things. It shows what your speed is, obviously, but it collects data. It'll collect traffic volume for us that we can analyze internally and share with residents. And I intend on doing that as the season starts warming up on this particular block. Before all that, and kind of all this was going on at the different meetings, our officers were directed to be a presence if we can, especially during pickup and drop-off times at the school. Laidlaw, somebody mentioned Laidlaw. That's a whole nother project for us to work with school in Laidlaw and Maple and Forest. This is kind of on the peripheral of all that on Chestnut here. We do recommend the kids to use the Forest crosswalk, but like anything else, certain people are going to use other crosswalks if it's more convenient, which is perfectly legal to do so. And then that's, I believe, Mr. Salvino, he's not here tonight, but that's what he said, that he's aware of the preferred crosswalk, but the kids are still going to use Prospect there. So yes, we have been looking at it. We'll continue to look at it. And safety is one of those things. I mean, there's several ways to skin the cat here, and hopefully we can get somewhat of a consensus.
Yeah, get to a good solution. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
If we vote against it tonight, it seems like there's issues with precedent, consistency, and the whole signature issue. And they don't necessarily go away if we vote against it or if we vote for it.
May I?
Yeah,
I've asked our attorney to look at the guidelines as they are and make recommendations to it so that we can kind of clarify that going forward so that we don't have this kind of issue again. Specifically, the guidelines are in place so that we are notified of an unsafe condition so that we can act. but I want those guidelines also to fairly notify people impacted by it at the same time. So Attorney Jerusik is going to look at that to revise it and
Well, the notification is a big
clarify.
deal. Was notification fairly made for this one?
Well, notification was made by Chief Buds after we received the petition, correct?
Sure, yeah, I personally spoke and emailed no less than probably 5 residents in that area that were on both sides of the coin, and my deputy chief did as well. Hours of conversation.
Can I just say, on the 1300 block of Chestnut?
Yeah.
Come up to the microphone, please.
On the 1300 block of Chestnut, after the first meeting, I can tell you how many residents knew about this. The 1306 and the Muris, those were the only people that knew about that this was going to be a sign. Every other resident there saw the temporary signs and thought they were due to the ComEd power outages.
Oh.
No one knew that this was even an issue. So.
Thank you.
And also,
Go ahead.
somebody had mentioned something about the, about why, and we've talked about this before, but somebody had mentioned why the parking on the north side of the street doesn't go down from Chestnut. In prior traffic commissions, they had said that the spillover from the Congregational Church did not go into the 1300 block, and also given the unique configuration of the block, that they did not want to impose more traffic or parking problems and restrictions on the block.
And you commented earlier that you asked a realtor about a 24-hour no parking sign putting a sign there on the effect on your property values. Did you ask about some of the other alternatives, like the portable no parking pedestrian sign that might go in?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not, I'm sorry, but they were all pretty adamant about the 24-hour no parking sign, that would have a direct impact.
And if we vote for this, is there any restriction from the residents going back through the cycle again and saying, we want to go back and redo the study and come up, have them propose an alternative? Because I agree with Trustee Sifferman, it sounds like the different options were explored, but the petition was for the 24-hour no parking.
That is correct.
But it was like a single
It was the
petition.
single option.
But if it gets passed and can they go back and just say, I don't want to use the word do-over, but they come back with a single petition that says we want this instead, can it go through this whole cycle? Because otherwise I feel we're just going to be in a do loop. And that's
Right.
sort of the challenge of the TNS Commission.
Can I just say, at the traffic meeting, there was no other option except parking or no parking. There was not an option of, could we have portable signs there? I know you were there.
Right, and I don't remember anything about portable signs being
Right.
considered, but I do believe that there were other considerations, other options that were considered.
I don't recall one of them being mentioned. I do know that it was a tough, long meeting. And
Right.
a lot of emotions were flying, and they had a lot of kids at the meeting, and so.
Thank you.
So I guess just this doesn't seem like this may be the best solution, but it seems like there's a lot here because you've got Lawn and Grove all the way there that already has this parking. So you have the consistency argument as well too. So.
Right. Which I believe is part of what Trustee Sifferman was mentioning.
Sure.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the table. We'll take a vote, and then from there, either it passes or it doesn't. Either way, I think the Traffic and Safety Commission may be reviewing this again very shortly.
So I guess just to clarify that, if it doesn't pass, that is what would happen next? It would go back to?
If it doesn't pass, we would.
Let's talk procedure, yeah. If in order to pass, it's an ordinance, requires 4 affirmative votes. There's only 5 trustees here. If you get to a 3-2 vote, president has to vote because she doesn't vote on typical agenda items except for she has a veto under state law. She has a tiebreaker vote and a majority maker vote. So in this case, when you have a requirement of an ordinance that needs 4 affirmative votes. If you get to a 3-2 vote, you don't have that extra trustee here, the president would have to vote to either make it 3-3 tie, fails, or 4-2 pass. If this does pass, it can always be reevaluated. If it fails, it can always, through direction of the board, be reevaluated back through a process. And the procedural defect on the guideline petition, I would just point out that we will address that issue. But again, those are guidelines. They're not really an ordinance. And the police chief, fire chief, village engineer, manager, code enforcement officers can always bring forward a measure that relates to public safety, regardless of whether, residents are the initiator or not. The staff can always initiate a public safety issue such as this.
I would say that if this does not pass, I would send it back to traffic and safety, because we all agree here that there is a safety concern and something has to happen.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Deputy Clerk Haskey, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Hansen is absent. Trustee Rudolph?
No.
Trustee Sifferman?
Aye.
Trustee Timek?
Nay.
Trustee Terrell?
Nay.
That's 3-2.
Yeah, there's no need actually for the mayor to vote in that case, because your tie vote, well, you can vote, but your tie vote will make it a 3-3, right, at best, and that still fails. A tie
Okay.
fails. A 2-4 vote is still a negative vote.
And a tie vote is a negative
And a
vote.
tie vote is a negative vote. A tie doesn't move the matter forward, so the matter fails just
Okay.
on the current vote.
So the matter has failed. We will send it back to Traffic and Safety Commission to come up with some alternatives, so that the property owners are not so negatively impacted with their property values, but still we provide safety for our young school children at that intersection. Thank you. Thank you both sides for attending. Sure, please come up.
Steve Hemauer, 1306 Chestnut. Presuming it goes back and for evaluation, it seems like there should be something more quantitative data that shows this intersection is more dangerous for these reasons, or it has this much traffic, or this much, foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, versus, another intersection a block away. So, because otherwise, what keeps somebody, as was brought up earlier, what keeps somebody from going and saying, you know what, they got no parking on one side of the street, and we've got the same situation over here, and I think you're just going to have a rat's nest on your hand to have to deal with.
At our last meeting, Chief Buds addressed that. Do you recall, Chief Buds?
As far as people wanting, if it passes one place, they want it somewhere else?
I think the issue is, depending upon what traffic safety comes up with in terms of the next recommendation, then that would dictate whether a formal traffic study was required.
Oh, yeah. We discussed that at every meeting up to this point. They're very expensive. There's different levels you can do, but if the direction of the board wants me to do that, I certainly would look into it.
Yeah, typically, he said there.
They looked at the traffic and the number of accidents and things like that, and that didn't support the fact that this was a more dangerous intersection necessarily.
Right, but then we had that eyewitness too, of the danger to the young school child. So, but perhaps that's the only way to resolve this is by doing a traffic study. They do run into the thousands of dollars, so we were hoping to resolve it without having to go that route. But ultimately, that might be the only way to resolve this going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Moving on, omnibus vote. So Chief Buds, you'll take that back to Traffic and Safety, then thank you very much. The Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions, such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items contained on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and Board of Trustees on at least one occasion, and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there any such request this evening? Hearing none, Trustee Timmick.
Thank you, President Gallagher. I move that the following ordinances, resolutions, and motions as contained on the meeting agenda for February 25th, 2019 be accepted and/or approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 2, approval of minutes of the meetings of January 28th and February 11th, 2019 as read. Agenda item number 3, resolution 19-2475, approving and authorizing the execution of a fourth addendum to the market license agreement between the Village of Western Springs and Ben Sedoun USA Incorporated relative to the operation of a French market in the village, extended term January 28, 2019 to December 31st, 2021. Agenda item number 4, resolution 19-2476, authorizing the approval and execution of a professional services agreement for the performance of Geographic Information System, GIS, services between the Village of Western Springs and CloudPoint Geographics, contract term 24 months. Agenda item number 5, resolution 19-2477, approving a budget amendment and transfers over $10,000 to the fiscal year 2018 operating budget in the Burlington Northern Commuter Parking Fund. Agenda item number 6, motion to accept the February 6, 2019 Public Works and Water Committee's recommendation that the village pay 25% of the project costs of the Ridgewood Oaks Detention Basin project as the village's public benefit contribution to the project. Agenda item number 7, motion to award a contract to the lowest qualified responsible bidder, Lakeshore Recycling Systems of Morton Grove, Illinois, for the 2019 street sweeping program in an amount not to exceed $65,000. Low bid $71,045.69. Agenda item number 8, motion to award a contract to sole and lowest qualified responsible bidder, Lane Christensen Company of Aurora, for the well number 5 drilling project in the amount of $1,148,880. Agenda item number 9, motion to award a contract to lowest qualified responsible bidder, Swallow Construction Corporation of Downers Grove, Illinois, for the well number 5 transmission main project in the amount of $409,917.50. Agenda item number 10, motion to award a contract to low-cost provider Wiegand Companies Incorporated of Chaska, Minnesota, for procurement and installation of the low-pressure reverse osmosis membranes located at the water treatment plant in the amount of $239,147.20 for installation and maintenance support of each set of membranes, well number 3 and well number 4. Cost of $239,147.20. Agenda item number 11, motion to award a contract to lowest qualified responsible bidder, Construction Solutions of Alsep, Illinois, for the Recreation Office Expansion Project in the amount of $49,723. Agenda item number 12, motion to award a contract to lowest cost proposal provider, the YMI Group of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, for the 2019 HVAC maintenance contract in the amount of $19,900. Agenda item number 13, motion to reject all the sidewalk replacement bids opened on January 4th, 2019 for the 2019 sidewalk replacement project, as lowest bidder was not qualified, and direct staff to rebid the project with an updated bid specification packet. Agenda item number 14, motion to approve the appointment of Elizabeth N. Welsh as a member of the Police Pension Board for a 3-year term to expire in February 2022. Agenda item number 15, motion to approve the appointment of James Horvath to serve as acting village clerk to fill vacancy in the village clerk position for the remainder of the term until April 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I just want to say, with regard to agenda item number 15, the board has previously met in closed session to discuss the appointment of an acting village clerk. Due to the relatively short timeline to fill the vacancy, it was important to me to field a candidate who has a working knowledge of the clerk's role and responsibilities to the board. As a former trustee, James Horvath has the experience and knowledge to seamlessly fill the void. After discussion and with the support of the entire board, I recommended we appoint Jim Horvath, and the entire board unanimously agreed. Jim, I want to thank you individually for stepping up to serve as our acting clerk, and we look forward to working with you again.
It's not, we got it over with.
What do you think about no parking signs?
Deputy Clerk Haskey, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President, and thank you, former trustee Horvath. Trustee Allen.
Aye.
Trustee Hansen is absent. Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Timick.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
And President Gallagher.
Aye.
The omnibus motion passes.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to open it up to public comment. If anyone left would like to address the board, this would be a general public comment not related to any particular issue. Hearing none, anyone have any other business? Okay, moving on to reports. I have a lengthy report. I almost think that I should just email it to you all. But on Wednesday, February 13th, Senator Kern and I held a meet and greet at Salerno's. It was well attended. We had residents from LaGrange, Indian Head Park, and Western Springs. Trustee Barry Allen and his wife Cheryl attended. Thank you for that. But it was a great opportunity for everyone to discuss their issues one-on-one with Senator Kern. On Tuesday, February 19th, staff hosted a resident information meeting on the proposed potential Flat Creek Greenway. That meeting was also very well attended. I'd like to thank staff, specifically Matt, Casey, and Jeff, for fielding the questions on the proposed path. No decisions have been made on the Greenway proposal at this time. We are still gathering information, and resident input is an important piece of that process. We will continue to reach out to our residents regarding the proposed path as we gather that information and more clearly define the multiple aspects of the proposal. Special thanks to trustees Hansen and Sifferman for attending the meeting. I was there as well, and I'd like to reiterate that no action will be taken without further discussion with our residents. On Thursday, February 22nd, I attended a civic leadership meeting with State's Attorney Kim Fox that was hosted by Cook County Commissioner Sean Morrison. It was a frank and open discussion of recent policy changes within this SA's office that have not been very well received. She spoke in depth of the challenges that the State's Attorney Office faces, but also stressed the need to better communicate policy decisions with their law enforcement partners. She stressed an open-door policy and encouraged chiefs and others to contact District 5 State's Attorney anytime there is a question or problem. So hopefully the communication aspect of that will clear up here in the next year or so. On Friday, February 22nd, I attended an Age Options legislative breakfast. Several state legislators were in attendance, including our own Chris Welch and a rep from Leader Durkin's office. The program emphasized that Governor Pritzker's proposed budget has modest increase in funding for senior services, and that was very appreciated. There is a growing trend of seniors to stay in their homes longer, and that trend is supported by both private and public agencies. Of course, there are challenges with that trend, and with more people staying in homes longer, it's important that they get the help they need and that they don't become isolated in their homes. Director Alden has created a very robust senior citizen program that is very capably overseen by McCagney. If seniors or their caretakers have any questions, please contact McCagney for a list of support services at our senior center and others nearby. One thing I learned at this meeting is that there are memory cafes located in Countryside and in Hodgkins. These cafes offer a safe and comfortable space where caregivers and their loved ones can socialize and enjoy a break from the normal routine. They provide mutual support to families with loved ones that have memory issues, and also an opportunity to exchange information. On Saturday, February 23rd, I met with the presidents of the Library Board, the Park Board, and the Western Springs Business Association to exchange info on expected goals and plans for each organization in the coming year. The library, of course, the big thing is the renovation of the library. They hope to have it completely done in May. Western Springs Business Association is focusing on social activities this year. They have the Gathering on the Green, Fall Fest, and Winter Wonderland, but they also will be hosting other events, including a June event at the theater where the graduate will be playing. Parks focused quite a bit on the shoe fly and the impact that will have on Spring Rock Park. We know it'll be a challenge, but together we'll work through it. They did receive a large state grant that will refund projects to rebuild the paths in Spring Rock Park. They hope to build a big tree house in Spring Rock Park and install a splash pad at the new playground. They will be moving with the shoe fly and the moving of the tennis courts to east. 2 basketball courts will pare down to 1, and the sand volleyball court will be removed altogether, and a new pavilion between the tennis courts will be built. They have also placed cameras in Spring Rock Park in areas where they had some issues last year with vandalism and theft, and they hope that these will act as a deterrent. And then we are working on compiling a social calendar together. I spoke with Manager Velkme about this, and she will speak with our communications manager. Seems like a good idea that not only our entities, but also the other entities that schedule events for all residents, like the Western Springs Historical Society, should have access to that so that these things can be scheduled and not overlap. Finally, over the past 2 weeks, I have met with the 3 caucus-nominated trustee candidates informally, and just to give them a general overview of what to expect should they be elected in April. After the election, there will be a more formal orientation for all 3 of them, and we'll go into more depth with that. Of course, I'm not looking forward to saying goodbye to 3 of our seasoned trustees, but each of these new candidates are enthusiastic and engaged, and I'm confident they will be welcome additions to the board. And that concludes my report. Manager Velkme.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Trustee Rudolph had requested that I provide a brief overview of the history of the west and the east pedestrian underpasses in Western Springs. There have been some questions about whether or not this just came up recently or so I wanted to give a little overview so that she can better understand and also discuss this, and I think for the other board members also. The concept of a pedestrian underpass has been discussed for many, many years, as we know, and in fact, when I was an intern here, the concept was discussed to have 2 underpasses. The elected officials at that time determined that this was becoming a more active community, and to improve pedestrian safety, there was the desire to reduce the number of pedestrian crossings on the railroad tracks. Thanks to our previous village presidents and boards, especially Sarah Ann Milano, John Krafsick, Jack Lynch, and our previous village manager, Higgins, the underpass became a reality. We received a $3 million grant. It was a transportation equity grant, T21 bill, and this was largely due to the efforts from Congressman Bill Lipinski. And the East Underpass, in fact, is named for him. So, at that time, there was a plan to build 2 underpasses with that money, but as usual, the devil is in the details, and soon became apparent that we would not be able to build both underpasses with that sum. The 2 locations, however, were identified at that time. The one would be east of Wolf Road at Clausen, which we have today, near the school, and the second location at that time was thought 180 feet west of Central Avenue. I kept on finding that information. The preferred method for both of the underpasses is top-down construction, which allows the most visibility and open look. In addition, our police officers can easily monitor it from the street. And the first underpass was completed in 2007 is when the dedication took place, at that time. Now to the West Underpass. So currently there are over 1,000 pedestrian crossings over a 2-day period at the Central Avenue crossings. So that's 500 a day or so. And that's thanks to our engineer. And we have about 130 trains per day, and some are going as fast as 70 miles per hour. And in 2010, there was an engineering study done about the best location for the second underpass bridge. And the study looked at pedestrian routes, geotechnical condition of soils, utilities, vertical and horizontal alignment, environment, and method and construction of cost. The locations evaluated were 1 first one at Hampton, second one between Hampton and Prospect, third between Prospect and Central, and then number 4 at Prospect. Of all locations, the Prospect location was the best, even though the pedestrian use maybe from the train or so at that time is thought to be, you know, as ideal as Central. But when you take a look at all the other factors that there are, they have recommended that we go with the Prospect location, and that is where we have it right now. And in today's dollars, the total estimated cost is about $3.25 million. We have secured the majority of the funding, and we still have several grant applications under consideration. So it's about $500,000 still that we are looking for, but we do have some out there still. So we hope to have the total amount covered. Just so if you receive any questions about, oh, can we use the money someplace else? These grants are earmarked for this project, so therefore we can't use it for anything else. So just so you know that. We are very happy to notify you that the BNSF has approved the use of the top-down construction method. That's something that we were really fighting for, because otherwise we'd have to have a pipe that pushes through, so that we believe that it would be best. And especially now that we're have all this construction over at the BNSF, it is the ideal time to do this. So, and it'll probably even maybe cost less than some of the estimated costs, because we will have that machinery out there. It'll be all dug up and so forth. So that's just a brief history. There's a lot of paperwork that goes with it. And if you have any questions, or if you have any residents that have questions, please have them call me.
Thank you.
And that is it for tonight.
Can I just ask it? Just
Sure.
And I really appreciate you responding to my inquiry and for the information that you provided. The 1,000 crossings, I'm sorry, when was that? Over the two-day period?
It was in June of 2018.
And that's at the current Central, or is, okay.
Central Avenue, that is correct.
Okay.
And those were video captured. So we actually used something called MyoVision, which is a device that has a camera on it, and
Okay.
actually you send all that information off, and they actually process it. So
And that was in the,
we had
I'm sorry.
over 1,000, over 500 a day.
Okay, and that was in the morning and in the afternoon, so looking
That's
at,
the entire 24 hours a day. We counted for 2 days.
gotcha. Was that when McClure was in session or no?
June,
Probably not.
probably, no, students were not in session, not
Right.
in school.
Right, okay.
So June,
'Cause a lot
it
of-
was like the 23rd, 24th, something like that.
Okay, right, because kids from the south cross the tracks at Central to go to McClure. Not as much for Laidlaw, they're too little. But the McClure kids would use that, so that's pushing them, the other location pushes them further to the west to go east. So that's why I ask. So, okay, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Village Attorney Drusik?
No report tonight.
I will go back, yeah. Thank you. So intentionally or not, I skipped over the monthly financial report. Trustee Rudolph?
So I've got a really long report. Is everybody ready? No, I draw to your attention the financials for January, and just one particular item to note is just that the pension fund, the police pension fund, which we know we all continue to watch very carefully, and the unrealized gain for January this time was 5.77%. So as we know, the markets were pretty bad in December, and now we're seeing a little bit of a return up. So we saw that in our January financials. Otherwise, the Police Pension Board did just meet last week and is continuing to look at the portfolio and the various funds, and continuing to scrutinize the returns and looking ahead. And we did discuss too at that meeting some of the concerns that have been raised here at the board. So we're looking into that further in our future meetings. And with that, I will make a motion to accept the monthly financial reports unless there are questions.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Hansen is absent. Trustee Rudolph?
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman?
Aye.
Trustee Timick?
Aye.
And Trustee Zero.
Aye.
Thank you. At this point in time, is there a motion to recess to closed session for the purpose of discussing the three items on our closed session agenda?
Yes, President Gallagher, I will make a motion to recess to closed session for the purpose of discussion of topic number 1, pending litigation, topic number 2, probable or imminent litigation, and topic number 3, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
May we have another roll call vote, please, Deputy Clerk Haskey?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Hansen is absent. Trustee Rudolph?
Aye.
Trustee Sipperman?
Aye.
Trustee Timick?
Aye.
And Trustee Tier.
Aye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have recessed to closed session. We will reconvene the open meeting once we conclude our business there, but only for the purpose of adjourning that meeting. No other material will be discussed at that time. Thank you for your attendance. Good evening.
We're gonna stay here?
No.